And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Sunday evening. Not too much has happened, but the waters are starting to clear here as the Hall of Fame ceremony has concluded, and now we can get into full-time trade deadline talk through Thursday. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. Welcome in Ethan, Sarah. Come on, CY. Couldn't agree with you more as a Ranger fan. Sarah, hey, Michael and everyone. Mo actually did something amazing for once for the Cards. He got a bit of something for Fetty. Braves, he sucks. Well, I'll put it this way. Braves have a really terrible rotation. When I tell you a really terrible rotation, I'm not just talking like, hey, maybe they could use a starter. I'm talking like they could use 5 starters right now. Spencer Strider's basically the only one going that has any ability to stay healthy right now, and he had injuries last year. Max Fried is gone. He's in New York having a great season. They had a starting pitcher go the other day, Grant Holmes, who's had a nice year for them. Had lots of control issues, though. His fastball was getting beat up. His off-speed stuff was working well. He's now landed on the 60-day IL to make room for Eric Fedde. That's how desperate they are for starting pitching. They made a trade during the week this past week for Dane Dunning from the Texas Rangers when Texas couldn't give Dane Dunning away multiple times earlier in the offseason and during the season. That's how desperate the Atlanta Braves are for starting pitching. So we've talked a little bit about how the Atlanta Braves may go at the deadline a little bit differently than what most national reporters are expecting. And when you look at their future here, they do have a couple of options for the starting rotation. Don't get me wrong. They've got Chris Sale eventually coming back. Eventually. Schwellenbach should be a decent option for them. Smith-Shawver as well. And then Spencer Strider. But here's the thing. One of those guys is in the rotation right now. And yes, they're not trying to compete to win this year. But when you look at their rotation next year and going forward, you have a lot of holes in that rotation. You need to get somebody in there with some control that's going to be good enough to be at least a number 2, maybe a number 3 in that rotation at worst. Otherwise, the Braves team, even if you do get a turnaround offensively, which has been an issue the last couple of years, the offense underperforming, even if you get that offense to turn around, what guarantee do you have that the Braves are going to be able to stop the other teams from scoring enough runs to be able to win the game? So we'll see with the Braves. We'll get into all different topics around the Braves later on in the video. But just food for thought with the trade for Eric Fedde going there. They need starting pitching right now. I get it. End of season. It is what it is. But my longer-term question for them is what are they going to do with that starting rotation after this season? Because right now it's a very murky picture, and I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel unless they make some significant changes to that roster. All right, Seth Lugo did indeed get extended 2 years, $46 million. In case you guys are wondering, he's the best, that's right, the best Royals pitcher with 50 starts in MLB, in Royals history at least. He has been that good for them. And let's just set the kind of the framework of this. 2.98 is his ERA with his time with the Royals, and that's the best mark for the Royals. There was some consternation about whether or not they'd be willing to hold on to his contract for even next year. Obviously, they're more than comfortable holding on to it for next year. They went ahead and extended him. So Seth Lugo having a great year, absolutely deserves the extension, yes. The price point is a little bit of concern because he is an aging pitcher, but so far so good for Seth Lugo and the Royals. So Royals are literally going to pull a Kofi Kingston in the Royal Rumble, and they're going to tease that they are contenders and then just get eliminated eventually. Well, let's go ahead and look at the contenders for this year. We'll start with the standings. Where do teams ultimately rank going into the trade deadline? We're a few days away. We'll go ahead and call this our trade deadline prediction video. We'll go team by team and see what would actually make sense and where teams will ultimately end up going here at the trade deadline. So who's going to be a buyer? Who's going to be a seller? Where will they go? Royals right now, 4 games back of the last wild card. Rangers and Mariners currently tied for it. Mariners would get it by winning the season series against the Rangers already. But the Rangers are hard charging. Astros, they're only 4 games behind them, so very competitive there. But you look at the race here. The Royals are 4 games back of that wild card. Red Sox aren't playing great baseball. Aaron Judge just got injured and is going to be DHing the rest of the year for the Yankees. The Rays, a team in front of them, has already declared themselves as a seller, and Guardians don't necessarily have enough offense to be able to be good enough to win. So, and who knows if they're even going to sell. Whether they sell Clase or Quan, those are also in the air. Royals have decided to add around the periphery of this team. It's cost them nothing as far as future prospects to bring in Randall Grichuk and Adam Frazier. And now they extend one of their own. You could call him their trade deadline acquisition just by keeping him. Now, Dbacks is headed for the IL. That's the one issue I do have, that the Royals are going to have to solve that rotation a little bit here before the deadline. I think they need to bring in one more starter with the injury to Dbacks. But there are some options that they could fill that role with, relatively cheaply. Orioles have a bunch of starters they're looking to move. I think they could peel off at least one of those guys for a relatively low cost, like they did for Grichuk and like they did for Adam Frazier. I think they could use another bullpen arm, but they're going to be a dime a dozen on deadline day. And those are really the last pieces I think the Royals will try to add here. Grichuk, I think, was their one offensive piece, along with Frazier, that they were trying to bring in to make this offense a little bit more proficient. But we'll see how things work out. And if this doesn't work, which it likely won't, if it fails, what have they cost themselves? Another 2 years with Seth Lugo? Well, if any evidence tells you it's worked out swimmingly for them so far. So why not go ahead and sign up for 2 more seasons? So good on the Royals for at least hanging around in the wild card picture. They're not necessarily a buyer in my mind. To me, they're more of the team that's standing pat and just adding at the periphery to beef up their roster just a little bit here and there. A buyer to me is going to be like a team like the Rangers who's going to go out there and add a closer. They're going to try to add a right-handed bat. The Yankees, they already added Ryan McMahon. Bigger foundational pieces. Changing your win total from, say, 85 to 88 wins. Those types of moves are where I'm seeing buyers at. Royals are just standing pat and just letting the teams fall by the wayside, like the Rays, and if the Guardians decide to sell, like the Guardians. But the Angels, they had a nice weekend anyway, splitting the series with the Mariners. I think they're going to be another team that stands pat and could finish, only a couple of games out of the wild card, but they're playing strong baseball right now. They got a tough series coming up against the Texas Rangers at home. Rangers winners of 6 straight, 9-1 in their last 10, the hottest team in the American League by a mile, and we'll see if they can hold off the Rangers at home. Welcome in Banana, Heel, John S. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Who will ultimately win the Suarez sweepstakes? I think I already discussed this in our live earlier today. To me, the favorites, according to John Heyman and to me, I see it as the Mariners and the Cubs. I think those are the 2 favorites for me. I'm leaning towards the Cubs because I think they're a little bit more desperate and might be willing to give up a better return. I think the Mariners are comfortable with Suarez, would love to have it, and aren't quite as desperate. But the desperation is certainly there in Seattle. But I do think he ends up going to one of those 2 teams. If I had to handicap it, 51-49 Cubs versus Mariners. But it's very close. I could see him going to either place. Heel, it wouldn't surprise me at all if 3 AL West teams, Mariners, Rangers, and Astros, make the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I think that's still a very realistic possibility, especially if the Judge injury persists, if the Red Sox continue to play hot and cold baseball. Guardians still finish on the outside looking in. Detroit still has issues. Maybe the Guardians catch them. Who knows? John S., when will Cashman make a trade? I still think we're going to get a trade here in the next few hours for a starting pitcher. It's just too quiet on the trade front right now. I think there's got to be some deals that they were talking about during the day, giving respect to the Hall of Famers today and letting them have their day in the sun. And now we're going to see some activity, hopefully. That's usually the way things have worked at the trade deadline, the Sunday before the deadline. The Sunday and then the evening thereof usually get quite a bit of rumors coming out. So hopefully, even with a very limited market this year compared to other years, we finally get some of the bigger trades this evening. So let us know which trade you guys are keeping an eye out for. Over the last couple of hours, we've seen the Cubs be connected quite a bit to Mackenzie Gore. Several articles coming out from lots of different corners of Major League Baseball saying that the Cubs are talking about Mackenzie Gore. And I think that might be one of the trades we actually see here at the deadline. One of the bigger trades we'll see at the deadline. I've been on this story for about a week now. If you guys want to check out probably 3 or 4 videos that we've made about the Cubs and Mackenzie Gore specifically. But the Cubs would certainly love to have an ace at the front of their rotation. Gore would signify that ace for this year, next year, and another year because he's under control for 2 more seasons after this season. Now, if they did add Mackenzie Gore, I don't think that stops their additions here on the pitching side. I still think they'll try to add one more starter. I would not be surprised if it turned out to be Dylan Cease and Mackenzie Gore here at the deadline, and then Imanaga takes the start in Game 3, and then they figure out what they're going to do in Games 4 or 5 of a postseason series. But I think we're going to get 2 starters going to the Chicago Cubs, and Mackenzie Gore looks like very likely to be one of those options. Smith, Helsley. I do think Helsley will move. Cashman more like cheap man, bro. Could have got Suarez, but instead he's like, no, you're getting McMahon, and you're gonna. I wouldn't quite say that. I think the price was absolutely sky high on Suarez from the Diamondbacks. I think as far as the ask hasn't been reported yet, but I would not be surprised if we find out after the deadline that the Diamondbacks were demanding for Spencer Jones. The Yankees were never going to say yes to that, and if the Diamondbacks weren't budging, I understand why the Yankees went ahead and made their move, get McMahon in, low-cost options, and now you go ahead and attack the deadline, filling already one hole on your roster. You add another bench bat in Ahmed Rosario to handle left-handed pitching. You have the injury to Aaron Judge. Now you're going to have to supplement this roster a little bit more, but the articles coming out today kind of detail how they're going to be a little bit more cautious. They might not go full bore here at the deadline, but it does still sound like they're going to add here at the deadline. Whether or not it's going to be a massive addition remains to be seen. I doubt it will be for a rental at this point because of the injury to Aaron Judge. I think they'll look for more long-term pieces. We floated the idea of Cabrera and Yuri Perez from the Marlins earlier today. Not saying that they could get Yuri Perez. I think Cabrera is the more likely of the two. But those types of pitchers, I think, are going to be the ones that interest the Yankees now rather than the rentals. I still think the Yankees or Mets end up with one of Gallen or Kelly. The Blue Jays end up with the other one. And that's kind of how the deadline is going to go on the pitching front. I doubt we see a Joe Ryan trade. But if there is going to be a Joe Ryan trade, the Yankees, with the injury to Judge, might be a little bit more open to that type of trade now due to Judge's injury and the long-term control of Joe Ryan. Let's see here. Mark, I think Texas will get a real closer. I agree. Harley, Texas needs a real closer. They do. Banana, if the Mariners don't get Gino, where do you see them going with a bat, starter, and bullpen? Starter, I don't think they're going to try to add anybody. I do think they're going to try to add a high-end reliever. High-end, according to Jerry Dipoto. So that could be anything from a 7th, 8th inning option like Sir Anthony Dominguez to a closer type who could be more of an 8th inning guy in that bullpen like Helsley, or an elite option like Duran, Clase, something like that. I would guess Griffin Jacks being the most likely of those names in that last category. But as far as a bat, if they don't get Eugenio Suarez from the Diamondbacks, they got Josh Naylor already. I would not be surprised to see them try to add an O'Hearn. I would not be surprised if they tried to add an outfielder. Stowers makes some sense from the Marlins. If the Marlins are truly open to trading him, would be a very curious trade between the two teams. Ramon Laureano, kind of a low-cost bat for them to go out there and get, would draw some interest. Luis Robert would also draw some interest from the Mariners. But Suarez is by far the belle of the ball. Whoever gets him is getting the best rental bat here at the deadline. Now, the controllable bats, if you can pry one away from one of these teams, like an Olsen, a Riley, an Acuna, a J-Ram, somebody with a real star, type of player, that's going to be the biggest trade deadline acquisition on the offensive side. Just like we saw Rafi Devers, I don't think anybody in this trade deadline window is going to be a bigger bat than what we saw Rafi Devers go to the San Francisco Giants. All right, let's get into some actual trades here. I wanted to kind of go through this and kind of look at it team by team here at the deadline. We'll start with the Toronto Blue Jays. Put our Blue Jays hat on. We're the Blue Jays. What do we need here at the deadline? I need an ace at the front of my rotation. I need somebody to take the ball in a playoff game. So I need a number 1, 2, or 3 starter. I need somebody to at least give me innings just in case Scherzer goes down to injury again. But I need somebody there, preferably on a long-term deal. But I'm okay with them being a rental as well because now I have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I can convince people to stay now in Toronto or go to Toronto because I've got that extension done. So I'm looking at both. I'm looking at both sides of this thing. If I'm the Blue Jays, I'm also looking for a bullpen option. I may be looking for a closer, but if the prices are too high, I'm just fine getting a setup guy. Helsley kind of fits that mold as well. So if I'm the Blue Jays, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling San Diego about Dylan Cease. I think he would immediately be an upgrade in that rotation. If they could get a deal done, go ahead, sign the deal, get it done right now. I think they'll end up going a different direction. I think the Cubs will give a better offer than what the Blue Jays will, so you're going to have to move on to plan B. You go to the Arizona Diamondbacks. You talk to them about Gallen and Kelly. My preference, if I'm the Blue Jays, I want Mel Kelly. Kelly's been a better pitcher this season. He's been a more proven performer, and he's a little bit older. So if I did decide to bring him back in free agency next year, he's not going to cost me as much as Zach Gallen. Gallen's performance this year has been too much up and down. Mel Kelly's been a lot more steady. But I think he would take the ball probably in Game 3 of a postseason series. That would be how I would attack the deadline. You make the trade for Kelly, low-cost option there. You try to go ahead and bring in some bigger pieces as well in that bullpen. I think you go Ryan Helsley on the low end of cost. But if you go with a Mel Kelly instead of going for like a Mitch Keller who they're connected to or an Edward Cabrera, you then go out on the bullpen side and try to add somebody with some control. Griffin Jacks, Emmanuel Clase, Johan Duran. I think Duran would be the guy I would try to target if I'm the Blue Jays on the high end. You'd probably have to trade out Yasevich and a couple of their 4 and 5 prospects, Stefan and King. I think if you trade 3 of their top 5 prospects, you get Durant, you might be able to even convince them to part with Willie Castro in that deal. But Castro's got a strong market. Recent rumors in the last hour, anyway, dictate that the Astros have now checked in on the market for him. One other news on the Twins, guys, Harrison Bader is drawing interest from the Los Angeles Dodgers as well. But for the Blue Jays, I would try to get Duran. So let's go ahead and make the trade. Blue Jays, Twins. Duran is the piece we want. He's around 25 value. You're going to need probably 28 to get the deal done. 2 years left of control. Looks like they've updated Pablo Lopez's deal too now. He's up to 17.2, even though he's still injured right now. So kind of interesting that he bumped up 11 points when he hasn't even thrown a pitch. Tells you that somebody's been paying attention to our lives from the BTV crew here and fixed the values of Olsen and Pablo Lopez here and a few others. All right, Blue Jays. You're not going to give up Berger. Namal is too valuable, but Yosevich I think would be a great guy going to the Twins. And then Stefan I think would be the preference there as well. How close are you? 19. And then King would be the last one here. Your 2, 4, and 5 prospects for Yohan Duran. That's a very aggressive move, but because I'm getting the control of Duran, I might be willing to do this. The reason why I'd be willing to do this if I'm the Blue Jays is because my contract, my future as a front office executive with the Blue Jays, rides on making the postseason this year. And they've been one of the best teams in baseball for about 60, 65 games now. I would probably do this deal if I'm the Blue Jays. Twins, I'd probably say yes to this deal because I'm getting 3 starting pitchers back. All 3 of them have a legitimate chance to make it to the big club at some point. That's really good value on Duran as well. I think you might be able to even get a second piece out of it and get a 4th lower level cost piece out of the Blue Jays. Luke Perfitto's a nice piece, but if you wanted to get, say, a Willie Castro, maybe you go that direction. One other bullpen arm that I really like out of Minnesota is Brock Stewart. He's in the 99th percentile of a lot of different categories in the bullpen. So he would be another guy I'd be trying to get. How much contract does he have left anyway? 2? If you could get him, this would be a very interesting deal. Now, I'd have to give up a little bit more in return. I thought he was an expiring, but he's got a couple years left. If you put Roden in this deal, they've had trouble with getting guys to stay healthy in that outfield. That solves your bullpen right there. That's a really good deal if you're Toronto. You think Texas gets Bednar or Finnegan? I think Texas would they're much more likely to get Bednar. I just don't think Finnegan moves the needle enough for them to give up prospects to bring him in. We'll look at their numbers here in just a minute when we get to Texas. But that would be my deadline. You bring in Mel Kelly, Duran, Stewart, you solve your bullpen issues. Maybe you bring in a 4th outfielder in this deal to kind of round it out. What's Bader's value? Oh, he's on the Twins. Excuse me. 1.9. I do this trade all day long if I'm the Blue Jays. I'd be a little bit more hesitant by giving up the Brock Stewart and Bader pieces in this. But I would really like that return for the Twins for Duran and Stewart. All right, let's go back to the standings here, and let's go ahead and do another team. The Detroit Tigers kind of in a backslide. They finally stopped that slide today, beating those Toronto Blue Jays. They're 61-46. Guardians are catching up to them a little bit here. Royals think they still have a chance. Tigers do have enough pitching, though, I think, in the starting rotation. I think they need more of a veteran influence more than anything else in that lineup, a utility player, to come in and settle things down. I think they could use a bullpen piece more than anything else on the pitching side. Somebody proven, somebody who's been there, done that. Kenley Jansen kind of comes to mind for that type of a player. Mason Miller, as far as an elite option, would be in that conversation. On the NL side, Bednar, of course. I think the Bednar race probably comes down to Texas and Detroit. Finnegan, same kind of a thing there. You could go Helsley for the Cardinals. I think they could be in that group of closers that they're looking at. Helsley, Jansen, Bednar, Finnegan. Let's say they're the team that gets the Cardinals closer. So Cardinals and Tigers. Cardinals send Helsley to the Tigers. Tigers send them a young starting pitcher probably in this deal. 3.8. Let's see. You could go Jaden Ham. That'd be interesting. Owen Hall, I think, would be better. And then Schiefelbein. How do those two guys rank out of Detroit's farm system? Is it not going to load? There we go. We'll just refresh it that way. All right, so Detroit, we were looking at Hall. He's their number 11. Ham was the other one. 19-year-old, 7 ERA, first exposure right now. Drafted in the second round last year. Okay, so they're kind of doing the same thing with Job. What about Ham? A little bit better. Not a great option either. Randall is another name I saw. It's a little bit better numbers. 4 ERA though. None of those guys move the needle for me. So I would probably say no to those pieces if I'm the Cardinals. I'd look for something better. Even though you'd think the age and position are right, the pieces don't fit. Maybe you go... What's Montero look like in this system? Schiefelbein. Rookie ball. Strikeouts are there. Walks are a little bit excessive. Nobody else really fits there. Okay, I don't even see Montero. Cubs need Suarez. Welcome in, Eric. Appreciate you joining us. Sean, welcome in. Banana, welcome in. Try to answer a couple of your questions before we finish off this trade. If the Rangers don't get Gino, okay, we did that one already. If the Cubs don't get Suarez, what other bat could they get? Taylor Ward as an outfielder doesn't really fit. Rengifo would fit as a utility player, though, from the Angels. That'd be a good one. As far as a bigger bat likes Gino Suarez, if you're looking third base, you could go Nolan Arenado. I don't think that would be a great fit, though, because of the contract going into the future. Yeah, it would be kind of Suarez or bust on the third baseman spot, honestly. Trade market, you could try to overwhelm the Braves, just like I've been trying to do with the last couple of weeks anyway, with different trades. Maybe get Austin Riley, if you give him a controllable starting pitcher. Although the Braves are looking to get starting pitching, so they don't really have that to give. That'd be hard to overwhelm them for that package. Who else could they go for? Nathaniel Lowe, no. Orioles, Ramon Laureano, Ryan O'Hearn. Padres, don't really have anybody that would fit. Pirates, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is kind of a utility guy. Doesn't really move the needle. Brennan Lau would be a nice piece from the Rays. Maybe they go Brennan Lau. Rays are selling. He is on the injured list, but will be back shortly. I'll say Brennan Lau if they don't get Suarez. But I do agree the Cubs need Suarez more than any other team, I'd say, left in the race. Besides the Mariners, I think those are going to be the two teams for him. Should the Guardians sell, or should they keep Kwan, Clase, and Ramirez? If I'm the Guardians, sure, I have a chance to get to the postseason this year, but I'm not going to do any damage when I get there. Maybe their owner needs the funding that you get from getting into the postseason. Getting that playoff share is important to them. If it is, then they're going to try to stand pat and see what they can do. But I think for the betterment of their team, they're either going to have to trade Kwan this trade deadline or in the offseason. If they don't get the extension done, they're going to have to trade him. But they're going to have to figure out a solution here in the next few months for Kwan. As far as Clase, similar kind of a boat. J-Ram, he's got the no trade. He's got 3 years left on his deal. He's going to be staying there, I would imagine, unless J-Ram requests a trade out. I don't think the Guardians would go to him and ask him to accept a trade without having his knowledge that he'd be accepting it or would want the trade to begin with anyway. You think Texas gets Bednar Finnegan? I'm going Bednar. Cubs need Suarez. Yes, they do. Cubs need Sandy Alcantara. I don't agree on that one. I think we're looking at probably the Los Angeles Dodgers for Sandy Alcantara. I think second place probably goes to the Padres because they think they're the Dodgers South. Anything you can do, I can do better. Big brother, little brother kind of syndrome. I like the Padres, but they do copy what the Dodgers do quite a bit, which they've been the best team in baseball, at least as far as running your organization for a while now. Prospects that they're able to get, building out their roster on the big league club. They've tried to do a lot of what the Dodgers have done to try to keep pace, and it's worked for the most part. Dodgers obviously with the World Series victory to show for it, though. Padres not so much. All right, but let's finish this trade here between the two teams. Helsley goes to the Tigers. They end up trading... Let's see. Who else could the Cardinals throw in this deal that would make sense for them? Donovan, no. Newt Barr would be interesting, but no. Nobody there. I don't see anybody on that list making sense to trade to Detroit. Let's go back to Detroit. Maybe you give them kind of a grab bag of starters. So you go with Dickerson, Salcedo, Silva, something like that. Maybe give him one more piece to throw. Give him another bite at the apple, if you will. Reyes. Something like that. A bunch of A-ball prospects. Dickerson being the best of them. Let's see if Dickerson even makes the top 30 here. He does not. So basically you get 4 guys outside of the top 30. So 4 true lottery tickets for Ryan Helsley. A trade like this, usually 3 lottery tickets gets it done. But I think with the high prices for relief pitching, you're going to have to throw in the extra one. So there's your trade for the Tigers to help steady their bullpen. Let's go ahead and do another contender here. Welcome in Mawani. You'd love Helsley in Texas. I would like him in Texas. I wouldn't love him in Texas, mainly because I still have questions about, of course, him being a free agent at the end of the year. It gets him right back to square one in the bullpen next year. Bednar, I think they've been connected to a lot longer. I think he gives the Rangers a lot more what they're looking for, which is a swing and miss closer specifically. Helsley's had a really good year, a really bad year. He's had some injury issues. He's having a good year again this year, so that's why he's going to be a good asset here at the deadline for somebody. I just think that the Rangers would be better off going with a more proven option at closer and with more of a strikeout first type of player. Aiden, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. You think Yankees can get Griffin Jax? I doubt it. I think they're going to be, if they're going to spend big here at the deadline, if they're going to bring in somebody a high quality piece, I think it's going to be on the pitching side. I think they're going to try to go for somebody with some control. We're talking Ryan, Cabrera, we're talking Mitch Keller, pieces like that. I don't think they're going to spend big on a bullpen piece, even though Williams is going to be a free agent here soon. But I think that their primary objective is going to be adding a starting pitcher at the deadline, and they're going to put their chips towards that rather than a Griffin Jax. Plus, Jax is very limited in closing experience, so while he's capable of doing it, we saw him blow a save the other day when Duran was not available for the Twins against the Dodgers. You did get Rosario last night, yes, sir. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our standings here. We're going to go to the next team, and that's the Houston Astros. Where do they go here at the deadline? Put our Astros hat on. What do they need? There's been rumored to need a left-handed hitting second baseman, but that was before the injury to Paredes. Paredes goes down. Now they just need a bat, period. They've been rumored to need an outfield bat all season long, a middle relief option. Maybe a back-end starter wouldn't be a bad idea either. So they could go a lot of different directions here. I think on the high-end piece that they could go after would be a guy like Mason Miller. Just kind of make your 7th, 8th, 9th inning as locked down as you possibly can. You put Abreu in the 7th, you put Miller in the 8th, you put Hader in the 9th, and you try to shorten the game that way, kind of like what the Yankees did back in the day when they had Chapman, Miller, Britton, Betances, one of the best bullpens we've ever seen. David Robertson was in that bullpen for a small period of time. That was a lethal bullpen. That was when teams were adding multiple closers at the back end of their bullpens and just loading up that way. I could see the Astros doing something like that to kind of help out their starters. On the offensive side, I think any number of options in the outfield could work. Ramon Laureano, I think that would probably be one of the better options because he gives you some center field flexibility as well. I would probably say Ramon Laureano would be the guy I would go after if I'm Houston. But let's try to do a bigger trade, though. If I'm trying to shorten the game, and Mason Miller, I think the Athletics are absolutely trying to advertise to trade right now. If we're trying to really improve the roster as best we can, if we're the Astros, shortening the game might be the biggest impact that they could make. You could make the argument that Yandi Diaz, that they've had interest in for the last couple of years, they make the move, and he starts at second base. But then what do you do with Altuve and Bryce Matthews? That'd be a tough one to kind of horseshoe in there. But Mason Miller fits like a glove into that bullpen, but you have to give to get in that type of a deal. Let's see what it would cost. Like I said, I think the A's will be moving Mason Miller. I think he will be moving. I'm surprised that one's honestly not being talked about more on the national media side. But when you bring him in the 8th inning, when you're down by, 4 runs in the game, to get 1 out just to lower his ERA to under 4, come on, man. Like, he didn't need the work. It wasn't like, he hadn't thrown in 7 days, so you wanted to get him out there to at least get loose again. If that was the case, you would have thrown a full inning, not one batter. Like, come on, man. That was clear, blatant, hey, Rangers, we know you're looking for a closer at the deadline. Here's Mason Miller. It was pretty blatant. All right, so the Athletics and the Stros, they just played each other. The Athletics got swept. Or the Athletics swept the Astros, excuse me. But Mason Miller here, 30 value. Helsley has good stuff for any contending team. I'll agree with there. I do like Helsley. It's just that I would like other options more. You wish Texas would double up in the bullpen? I would love that, honestly. If they don't get a bat, I would love them to add 2 elite closer types. Duran and Bednar would be the 2 I would target. All right, but let's do this trade. Miller to the Astros. What would the Astros have to give up to make this a legitimate option? Obviously, you're not giving up any of these top guys. I think the first option comes with Jacob Melton, but they're looking for starting pitching. You don't really have starting pitching to give if you're the Astros. So you're going to have to overpay in players. Melton could be an answer for them in the outfield soon, but you're going to have to give to get here. So Melton becomes the first piece. I think Alvarez could be that second one. But I think Ryan Johnson, because he's a starter, would be a better option. With those two players in, we're up to 26. I would say you need probably another 8 value here to get the deal close. So if you're looking for 8, maybe go Walker Janik. Maybe go Gusto. DeZenzo. Kind of fits the mold of what they already have on the A's roster in Kurtz and in Soderstrom. That'd be tripling up on that type of a player. Let's say they go Fortucci. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but we'll go with that. And then they go Ulola, who's done a really nice job recently for them as well in the minors. So the A's get 3 starting pitcher prospects and a really good outfield prospect to take over in left or right to kind of complete this young nucleus that they have offensively. And all they give up is Mason Miller. This offer would be right up there with some of the best offers they could get for him. They might build around a closer. I don't mind the idea of them growing around pitching, yes. But you don't build your team around a closer. I don't care how much control you have left or how good they actually are. I don't care if they're Mariano Rivera. You don't build your team around a closer. Now, your starting staff, you might build from the back forward on your pitching staff, but you're not building your team around that closer. Mason Miller's a really good closer, but, I mean, they need starting pitching first. They have to get the ball to Mason Miller first. Their offense looks incredible right now. But what's the one thing this team lacks that allows them to win games? Starting pitching. And Nick Kurtz is going to be the star of that team. That's the player you build around if you're the A's. Nick Kurtz, Jacob Wilson, Max Muncy, Soderstrom may be a piece that ultimately is redundant in that team that they have to trade away because his natural position at first base. Nick Kurtz, obviously the better player. But if you can get this type of a return, you continue to add to that offensive core. Then Rooker becomes available here in a couple of years. Soderstrom might be available here at the deadline. But this would be a really good trade, I think, for both teams. Astros shorten the game, make it a very competitive, make their rotation compete for those first 6 innings. Hey, Hunter Brown, you're a Cy Young candidate. Go back to being a Cy Young candidate. Focus on getting those outs. Stop worrying so much about getting it to Josh Hader at the end of the game. Focus on getting your 6 innings, and then we'll worry about the rest afterward. Abreu, Miller, Hader. That's a very lethal bullpen in a postseason series. You could probably get 2 innings out of Miller in a postseason series, or in a postseason game. You might be able to convince Josh Hader to do 2 innings if you had to in the postseason. But that would be a really good move for the Astros, who have shortened their contention window by with a lot of the moves that they've made over the last couple of years, allowing players to leave. A stroke of genius opened it up a little wider by trading away Kyle Tucker. They got a future, all-star on their roster in Cam Smith right now, and Isaac Paredes. Paredes is going to miss some time here, but this would be one way to at least build a really strong bullpen, a la the Yankees when they had Betances, Britton, Chapman, those kinds of things. All right, Miller Wright saying Oakland build around him. We already talked about that one. Tommy, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Mets sweep the Giants for their 7th win around. Let's go Mets. Mets are playing really strong baseball. Giants needed to have a nice series there to stay in contention in the wild card race. I think the trade for Devers kind of gutted their depth on the pitching side, and they're really feeling it. So if they add pitching depth here at the deadline, maybe they could hang tough and hang around in that wild card picture if the Padres do, in fact, move off of Cease and retool that roster a little bit at the deadline like they're expected to do. Reds are in that picture as well. But let's go ahead and post this trade and move on to the next club. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. There we go. There it goes. Now it wants to work. Try to keep my notifications on just in case anything does happen for you guys. All right, so we've done the Blue Jays, Tigers, and Astros. What about this wild card race? Let's start with the Yankees. 57 and 48. They are not playing good baseball right now. They did get a very nice win today, though, against Zach Wheeler and the Philadelphia Phillies. But no Aaron Judge for at least the next 10 days. He's probably going to be out till the second week of August, it looks like, at the earliest. And when he does come back, he's not playing the field. They are not going to try him at first base. He will be a designated hitter. So what do you do with Giancarlo Stanton? Do you bench him again in some matchups? He can't exactly play the field as much as he did when he was younger. Do you go out there and add a Luis Robert? Bellinger probably takes over the majority of the time in right. You play Grisham a lot more in center, I'd imagine. Dominguez pretty much plays every day in left and probably splits time to a certain degree with Stanton when Judge does come back. And who knows if Judge is even going to be able to stay healthy enough to take swings. But we'll see. The Yankees have the farm system to get anyone they want. I don't think they have as good of a farm system to get anyone they want like the Dodgers do. I think they have enough to get one or two players. But that's about it. Say they want to get Yuri Perez or Cabrera. I think that's going to take probably at least one of your top two prospects there, Lombard or Jones. And then if you want to go for one more impact piece, controllable asset like a Joe Ryan, that takes the rest of it, and then your system is done. Back to the drawing board. You have some nice prospects, but you're not quite as deep as many would leave you to believe. The Yankees do have some good options. I don't think they'll sell the farm at the trade deadline this year after the injury to Aaron Judge. I think they'll be cautious, but if they're going to make an addition, I do think it'll be for a controllable bat, or a controllable arm first, and then controllable pieces, period, after that. What do you think about Lars Nootbaar to the Cubs deal? I don't think it really fits for the Cubs. They don't really have enough room for another outfielder like Nootbaar. PCA, Tucker, Suzuki, Happ is still there. There's not really a spot for him on that roster. I do like the extension for Lugo, who is the best Royal starter through 50 games in franchise history. You still want to see Jones up there? I think I would too if I'm a Yankees fan. But if you're looking to bring in an impact piece like a Cabrera, a Ryan, you're going to have to give up one of, if not both of, Lombard and Jones. I think for Ryan specifically, you'd have to give up both. I think Cabrera, you give up one of those guys. Keller, you give up one of those guys. If I'm choosing between the two, I selfishly would want to keep Spencer Jones, even though he has lower value according to BTV. I think Jones is, really hitting the ball really well. He's developed really nicely and developed with a spotlight on him. He can handle that New York media pressure. He's been doing it since, 2-3 years ago when he was given the baby Judge comps, which really kind of upset the apple cart there. Depressed his value, sent him into a little bit of a slump, and then solved those issues, and he's back to being the prospect they all thought he would be, and shows you the grit he's kind of grown into there. LK2, welcome in. First time I think I've seen you in our chat. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. You'd like Lugo if he's available. He's not going anywhere, though. He just signed that extension. Rangers coming for those Stros. They are climbing on him. Only 4 games back now. Is Drew Gilbert coming up to play center field? For the Mets, I still think they're going to go for a trade guy like a Mullins or a Robert. I don't think they'll go with an in-house option after the deadline. I think they're going to add somebody to solve that issue in center for them. All right, but let's talk about the Yankees. Let's put our Yankees hat on. What do we do here at the deadline? Well, we've already addressed our need at third base with McMahon. We addressed our need against left-handed pitching with Ahmed Rosario. Now all of a sudden we got a wrench thrown in here. Aaron Judge goes down. Best offensive player. Hopefully he can come back and make an impact. If he doesn't, we're sunk anyway. With that in mind, my needs going into the trade deadline were a starting pitcher 1, bullpen 2, third base 3. Suarez was seen as the favorite for to go to the Yankees for quite a period of time. The price was just way too high according to the Yankees. I'm guessing that the ask anyway from the Diamondbacks was probably a straight-up deal, 1-for-1 Spencer Jones for Eugenio Suarez, and I absolutely would have turned that deal down as well if I'm the Yankees. And if the Diamondbacks are unwilling to budge, you quickly pivot, solve your issue at third base, and you still move on and still have time to address starting pitching. With that in mind, where do we go to solve the starting pitching need for the Yankees? With Judge's injury, I think that still leaves them somewhat in the realm of a rental option. Low cost. Trevor Rogers, for instance, from the Orioles, has 1 year left on his deal after this year. I think would be a great candidate for the Yankees. Very low cost. You're already familiar with him because he played against the Orioles so much. I think he'd be one piece. But as far as a rental, we're talking Gallen or Kelly from the Diamondbacks. You have a lot of rapport already with the Eugenio Suarez talks. You already have a good idea of what they're looking for in a trade. Zach Gallen has the higher ceiling, so he'd be the rental I would try to get. And it's not going to cost you a whole heck of a lot. Raymond, Ridiculous, welcome back. Clase will cost a lot for teams. Yeah, absolutely he will. I think his value is around 35, 38 now for the Guardians. What do you think the Royals do now? No Casey? I don't think so. I think the Royals are pretty much going to be stuck with their roster that they have, and I think they'll actually add a starting pitcher now with Dbacks' injury. They're trying to compete this year. I don't think they're going to sell off assets. Raymond, do you think it's possible that a team we expect to buy heavily just ends up standing pat because of the lack of team selling? I think there'll be more than a few teams that do that. I think Detroit is one team that is going to need a relief pitcher. I think they're a team that very well could stand pat. Red Sox, looking for controllable pitching. They're looking for a first baseman. They could be a team that stands pat here, but they already made their trade with Rafi Devers. Mariners, they're looking for another bat and a high-end bullpen piece. They've been notorious for not acting at the deadline in years past. Will they do so again? Wouldn't be overly surprising. Rangers have stood pat in years past, but I think with this win streak that they're on, I think they're going to push their chips to the center. I don't think that they will stand pat. On the NL side, teams that are actual contenders, Dodgers, unless they make a difference-making move, I don't see them making a move here at the deadline. But I think they will end up getting one of the elite closer options that's available. Cubs, they're all in this year. They will add. They're not going to stand pat. Brewers, I think they could stand pat with the roster they have. They already made their addition with Andrew Vaughn. I think they could add a right-handed hitting DH type, Marcelo Ozuna type of a piece. Phillies don't really have the flexibility to do much, but I think they're looking bullpen and center. I doubt they stand pat. Padres are looking to do a bunch of things. They're not going to stand pat. Mets need an ace. They're looking bullpen and center field. They will not stand pat. So there will be a few teams, mainly on the American League side, that I think will stand pat because it is so wide open. Who knows how good you're going to be? You know, who ultimately is going to fall off and who ultimately makes the wrong moves here at the deadline and allows you to jump up. For instance, if the Royals didn't make one more move, the Rays, I think, would fall behind them. Guardians, I think, are going to stand pat. If Aaron Judge doesn't return, Yankees could plummet all the way past them. It's going to be an interesting deadline. What are the Braves going to do? They're going to sell a little bit here at the deadline. I think they're looking Raisel Iglesias, Marcelo Ozuna. But when we get to the Braves section, I got quite a little bit that I'm going to go through with you guys on the Braves because I did a deep dive on their team and their future and what they have to work with as far as assets. It's a very bleak future. They need to course correct quickly, whether it be at this trade deadline, the offseason, or next trade deadline. If they wait any longer than that, we're talking about them being in the cellar in that division in as soon as 3 years. Things don't look good, or too rosy anyway, for the Braves. They have a lot of guys under contract, but a lot of those guys are starting to age, and they don't really have anybody coming to replace them. So we'll get into that here in just a minute. But we're the Yankees. Where do we go at the deadline? We'll start with Zach Gallen. We'll start with a rental because that's going to be the easier option. You already talked a lot of dialogue for Eugenio Suarez, so you just pick up the conversation and say, hey, look, We know Gallen's had his struggles, but we think he still has a very high ceiling. We like what he's going to be able to give to our club. So we will take Zach Gallen. You don't even have to eat any of the salary. We will give you a nice piece back as well. I'm going to go ahead and trade LaGrange as the first piece in this deal. I know his value is already a little bit above Zach Gallen, but I think that's what it's going to cost to get him after the offers Gallen's going to be bringing in. But it's going to take a second piece, a low-cost second piece from the Yankees. We'll go to page 3. It's not going to cost anybody off their Major League roster, but you throw them a bone. You give them a Emmanuel Tejada. Gives them somebody for short if Lawler doesn't work out eventually. So then your trade looks like this. LaGrange, Tejada for Zach Gallen. Remember, you're going to be able to sign get a qualifying offer piece for Zach Gallen. Is LaGrange worth that right now? I would say his abilities for the Yankees, they're ascending, and I think that would be about right for the compensation pick. Maybe go a little bit better than the Tejada piece as far as a secondary. So you do, let's see, Roderick Arias. That's a name that's been thrown around quite a bit. That would definitely be an overpay. But for Zach Gallen, you solve some of your pitching needs. You don't have to have Marcus Stroman take the ball again for you this season. Go ahead and DFA him right now. Zach Gallen is your starter. But that doesn't get it done. To me, this is kind of a short-term move if you don't get the long-term starter. If you're looking for a long-term starter, which with Aaron Judge's injury, I think would be their preference right now, let's go to the Pittsburgh Pirates. We've talked a lot about Mitch Keller being the piece that the Pirates are going to be trading away. You could put Bednar in this deal, but I don't think the Pirates would combine both of their assets and lower the return that they get. So Keller for round 30. You're not going to get Lombard. Ben Rice would be of an interesting piece. Spencer Jones, I think, would have to be the piece that's included. And before you whine at me, Yankees fans, saying, no, you can't trade Spencer Jones. In this deal, you're going to have to give up one really good offensive piece. And Ben Rice, sure, why don't you just throw him in there? He's got more value anyway. You're the Pirates. Would you take Ben Rice in exchange? Switch shoes. You're the team trading away Mitch Keller. Would you trade away Ben Rice? Or would you trade away Mitch Keller for Ben Rice and a piece like Cam Schlitter? Or a couple of catching pieces? I don't think so. You're going to have to give to get. Other teams are going to outbid you anyway if you don't put Spencer Jones in the deal. Jarren Duran might go to the Mets and Robert Jr. too. Robert, I think, is still a very nice piece for them. They've been rumored to be in on him for about a year. Duran would be a little bit of a surprise to the Mets, honestly. I think that one's a trade that's going to happen in the offseason if and when it does happen. Braves start to unload. They added someone today. Well, they added someone because they need anybody who can take the ball. Anybody who can start a game. Anybody. Literally anybody. They don't have any starters. Welcome in, Jake. Appreciate you joining us. All right, let's finish off this trade. Jones is the first piece. I think you put in Flores. They're looking for offensive pieces. Perez. How close do you get? 27? You're going to have to blow them out of the water here. So who's the second high-value piece that you throw in there? Schlitter to take over in the rotation immediately for Keller. I think that's a little bit of an overpay, but I think it would get it done. If you take out Perez, I think you get closer. Let's see, who could you throw in this deal? If you don't do Gallen, you put Roderick Arias in this deal. I think I would prefer that trade anyway if I'm the Pirates. That way you get a shortstop out of it. I think Mel Kelly is better than Gallen. But I don't think the Yankees are worried about is better right now. I think they're looking for higher ceiling and higher performance. If you're in the same rotation, Gallen is the 1, Kelly would be the 2. Kelly's performed better this year, but Gallen has the higher ability. That's not a bad deal. Let's do one other one, and if for instance you said, no, I'm not trading Spencer Jones, I don't want to do it, look, anything but trading Spencer Jones, well, then you're not getting Mitch Keller. You're just not. So let's clear it out. We go for the Yankees again. You're looking for a controllable starting pitcher. So then you go to the Minnesota Twins, and you say, hey, look, we know your price is 2 top 100 guys for Jax and Duran, or 2 100 guys for Jax, or 2 top 100 guys for Duran. We know your price for Ryan is even higher. With that in mind, we have an offer for you. Go to page 1 on this list. There goes Ryan to the Yankees. Immediately steps in as their number 3 starter. Probably their number 2 starter in front of Rodon, honestly. Better than Keller. Now you're saying, we don't want to include Spencer Jones. He's more valuable than Lombard. Okay, I hear you. You're going to have to give to get, though. And I'm tired of hearing Yankees fans tell me Spencer Jones is worth more than the best player on another team's roster. I get he's got a bright future, but let's be a little bit more realistic. It's amazing how many times I'm bombarded with, offers for Paul Skeens, and they're like, well, Spencer Jones has a brighter future than Paul Skeens. In what world? All right, so you start with Lombard as your primary piece. You don't have to include Jones in this one, okay? Because Lombard is your primary. Twins are looking for starting pitching, and you have starting pitchers to give, okay? So where do you start? Ben Rice you could put in this deal as well if you needed to, as far as an added value. But we're going to start with Schlitter, and we're going to go Cunningham. And LaGrange probably would be the next piece as well. How close does that get you? 7 away. And remember, you'd have to overwhelm the Twins. And you're already at 4 pieces. So let's take out Cunningham. We need about 18 there. You could do Will Warren. I don't see that happening. I think they'd rather hold on to Will Warren. Or would they put Will Warren in this deal? That would be interesting. Chat, let me know. Would you put Will Warren in the deal or Ben Rice? I think if you put Will Warren in the deal, you only have to put 3 prospects in this deal for Joe Ryan. If you put Ben Rice in there, you're probably going to have to put 4. But welcome in Jay Snow. Jack Simmons, appreciate you joining us. What do you see Texas doing this trade season? We'll get into Texas here in just a moment. We've done Texas quite a bit, and so I just kind of wanted to give every other team their due tonight. Louis Seal coming back to maybe pen a rotation eventually. You'd rather trade Warren? Okay. So let's put Warren in the deal. We're going to take out Schlitter. We're going to say that you're going to hold on to him. You trade Warren in this deal. I think LaGrange has to stay in this deal, and you're really darn close. I don't think the Twins hang up on you if this is the offer. Lombard, Warren, and LaGrange, I think the Twins actually listen to you. It's not an immediate hang-up. Do I think it's an overwhelming, bowl-me-over offer? No. I think the value is fair. If this was the off-season, I'd say this is a pretty good deal. But at the trade deadline, I think the Twins are going to try to exact a premium. So maybe they go for a better piece than LaGrange. Or the Yankees could get a bullpen piece. Or a utility outfielder now that, or a fourth outfielder now. Where else could you go from the Twins? Majors, expiring deals. Bader, Castro, France, Paddock. I don't think Paddock really moves the needle, but gives you a middle relief option at least. Colom's been good. He'd be another middle relief type of player. Would you rather Castro, Paddock, or Bader? You have too many outfielders? I think so too, even with Judge's injury, but I mean, it's Aaron freaking Judge. You're not going to replace his production with one player. I think that's part of the benefit of having Ahmed Rosario now. Now you're better against lefties. McMahon will help you against righties. It gives you a platoon, but you got to do what you got to do in order to win. Yankees sucked Friday and Saturday, so bad. Boone needs to go. Boone's been a great manager for the Yankees. Like, I get the reactionary nature of sports, but every year there's a few Yankees fans who are upset with Aaron Boone, but he handles the media very well. He handles that team very well. I think the one guy that needed to go a couple of years ago is Brian Cashman after after Hal Steinbrenner was able to retain Aaron Judge. I think it gave Cashman a couple extra years. Willie Castro is a switch hitter. Okay. But I understand you're going to have to pay a little bit more of a premium. But I think that would be fine for one more piece. Cunningham, I think, would be probably at the upper end of that. Flores would kind of be in that range. Hess would be in that range. Let's say you do a guy like Ben Hess. Something like that. What does Hess's numbers look like anyway? I forget. I haven't looked at him in a minute. A-ball, high A, 61 innings, 89 strikeouts, but the walks are a little untenable. So I'm thinking Grant Holmes is kind of what he's going to be. That's not a bad deal. But LaGrange is a really ascending player already anyway. Could the Astros trade for Joe Ryan? Not without giving foundational pieces to their team. No. Jason Boone is atrocious. You don't watch them every day. The mistakes they make are garbage. Yeah, I know they make mistakes. Fundamental mistakes. Every day. Who built the roster that had one-tool players going for them? I get the coach is supposed to coach them up, but he can only do so much. Lumbering outfielders, guys playing out of position, because that's the roster he's got. I'm not saying he's perfect. There are things Boone could do better. I think managing the bullpen on days could be better. What was it? Was it Aroldis Chapman they had at one point where he and Boone did not see eye to eye and basically told Chapman to basically go home? Trying to remember which reliever that was 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, fundamentals of the game, partially on the manager. But if they weren't good at the fundamentals of the game to begin with, what exactly did he have to work with? Just saying, don't be so quick to bash Aaron Boone. He's done a nice job there. Could this be his final year if things go sour? Sure. But I think he's going to have the blanket of, hey, we didn't have Garrett Cole. We didn't have Stanton for a couple months. Luis Gil's injury. Now Aaron Judge. And I think he'll come back. The Yankees' payroll ability has covered up a lot of mistakes of Cashman. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was Chapman. Because I think Chapman was doing something in the bullpen one game, and then It basically went on for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 weeks, and he basically got told to be sent to go home towards the end of a season. Don't come back. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, kind of a thing. But let's validate this trade. That's a pretty good trade. And Joe Ryan, I think, would really help the Yankees, period. He kind of reminds me a lot of Max Fried and the impact Fried has had for the Yankees. He kind of fits that same type of a mold for me. The impact he would have for that Yankees team. Because then you go into next year, you have Cole as your 1 when he gets healthy, of course. Fried your 2, Ryan your 3, Rodon your 4, Heel your 5, or Schlitter, or whoever else you want to put in that conversation. For the Twins, looking at their side of this, why would they be bowled over by this trade? George Lombard gives you a really good option at shortstop. They've drafted shortstops. Gives them another option, another bite at the apple. LaGrange is a really good ascending starting pitching prospect that's probably a couple years away. Will Warren takes over in the rotation right now for you and has some projectability that he could be Joe Ryan in 3 years. Ben Hess is probably more of a middle of the rotation starter at best when he gets to the big leagues. But at least gives you some depth. And the Yankees round out their roster by getting Willie Castro as well. I think I would do this if I'm both sides. The question would be, if I'm the Twins, is Will Warren enough? Do I like Will Warren enough to make that deal? But that would be a great trade, I believe, for the Yankees for sure. But Anna, see if you like this trade from for the Mariners. Seattle receives Willie Castro and Griffin Jacks. I like the return. Twins get Harry Ford, Ty Pete, and Walter Ford. If I'm the Twins, do I jump up and down to that trade? I don't know if I jump up and down, but I'm encouraged if I like Will Warren. If I don't like Will Warren, I move on. There's other teams with better offers. It's all about what you think of Lombard and Warren in that trade, because those are the 2 big pieces you get. But as far as the Castro Jacks for Ford, and Pete, Ford by Ford, if you will, Boone with the same excuses all the time. That's called cliches. That's what you get from managers after the game. But as far as that offer, I don't hate it. I like it a lot more for Seattle than I do Minnesota, though. I would probably say no if I'm Minnesota. But not a bad idea. All right, let's keep this series going. We just did the Yankees. Let's talk about the Red Sox. The streakiest team in the American League. 1 week they're great. The next week they can't find their way out of a wet paper sack. The next week they are all world. The next week they're trading away Rafi Devers. Which team is this? They're a very young team. They are looking for a controllable starter here at the deadline. They, just like the Yankees, have been connected to Keller and Cabrera. Dylan Cease on the expiring rental market they've also been connected to as well. First base is also a need for the Red Sox. Now, there's really only one first baseman besides Yandi Diaz on the market for sure. That's Nathaniel Lowe. I'm just wondering what his value is at right now after another not great season. Low-cost option that I think would be great in Fenway. What is his value nowadays? How low did it drop? Dang. Negative 0.7? Wow. That dropped like a rock. Very low cost option. I think I'd go a different direction. Let's go with the Tampa Bay Rays. They're a seller at this point. They've told other teams they're selling, and they've been connected about Yandi Diaz in the past. So the Red Sox, to upgrade their roster at the deadline, go for Yandi Diaz. What would Texas have to give up to get Jacks? You're probably talking Rosario, Drake, Davio. That's probably your trade. If they don't take Rosario because of the injury, you're probably doing Dreiling, Drake, DeVio, maybe Ozuna, something like that. All right, so he's around 8, I believe, 8.1. Yep, he's still at 8.1. To the Red Sox. Taj Bradley has been rumored to be available, just got sent down to AAA as well. But the Rays don't need a first baseman back. They already have Jonathan Aranda over there. So what do the Red Sox give up for Yandi Diaz? We're looking around 8 valuation. So we're probably looking 12 total value you're going to end up having to send out. Valera, as a starting pitcher, could be a nice, interesting spot to start. I actually really like that option. Keep that one in mind. Romy Gonzalez is handling some of the duties over there right now anyway. You could do Soto as a straight-up deal. Let's see, you could go for an 18-year-old first baseman, Justin Gonzalez. I don't think they would do that. Kyle Harrison, I don't think they do that either. Castro in center might be interesting. Red Sox prospects, where are they? Let's see, what is Castro doing? He's at Double-A. He's holding his own at Double-A too. Nice year for based off of last. Strikes out a little too much. Does get a few walks, a little bit of speed. Not exactly a Rays player though. One specific tool better than the others. Let's do, what about Paez? I think that would be a good secondary piece. So we'll put him in this deal first. And then I think Valera would be a really nice piece for them as well. Oh, that's the Rays. Go back over here. Page 1. Valera. I think that's too much, obviously, for Diaz, but is there another expiring type player that kind of fits the mold? Little to help out in the rotation would be an interesting piece. They're looking preferably for a controllable starter, though. I don't think you're getting Rasmussen for this, obviously. But if you did get Little out of it to help out your rotation, if you're the Red Sox, you would trade Early and Reyes for Ryan O'Hearn. Possibly. I don't hate that deal. I would just prefer Yandi Diaz over O'Hearn. Period. I just like Diaz the player over O'Hearn. I get 2 young pitching prospects if I'm the Rays. I'm fine with them sitting down there in the minors for 2-3 years, and then all of a sudden we're looking up and they're, top 20 prospects in the game. I think Valera has that type of ascension. Paez might be able to, get into the top 100 at the back half. But he's a lottery ticket, pure and simple. They're actually right next to each other in the Red Sox list, updated farm list here. 5.4 ERA so far. Strikeouts are pretty strong. Walks are really good. He'll get those. He'll get that average down, though, I would imagine, since he's so young. Paez, 4 games, 3.3 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 3 walks in 10 innings. Still, very small sample sizes for both. 21 years old for Paez. Maybe you leave him out of the deal and just do a straight deal there. Take him out, take Little out since they're looking more controllable anyway. You just do a 1-for-1 deal. And there's your upgrade for the Red Sox at the deadline. Solving their need at first base. Not too bad. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Jax just doesn't make sense for Texas. Duran Twins is better and costs less because of control. I would agree. I think if you're looking for a strikeout artist, Jax is the better option. If you're looking to limit hard contact, closer, ability to handle the pressure situation. Duran's your guy, so that's why to me he'd be more valuable. But let's look at the standings one more time. We've already done most of the American League teams that are in playoff contention already. Blue Jays, Tigers, Astros, Yankees, and now the Red Sox. Watch the Rays sell and still find their way to get the wild card. It's what they do. They've been very good at doing that in the past. Well, let's go ahead and do a little bit of Mariners. Let's say they go ahead and try to get Geno Suarez. What would it cost them? How do they beat the Cubs' offer? They just came together on a trade, so they're already familiar with each other fairly intimately. His value is around 8.1, I believe, as well. He goes to the Mariners. Where do you go with this trade? They were looking bullpen help before. They added another bullpen piece in the Grichuk deal. I don't think they'd look another relief option here, but I do think they're looking for a real piece in return. Bautista and Pete, I think, would be a deal that would be a little bit too much value. I think Bryce Miller, a straight-up deal with Bryce Miller, would be very interesting. It is a massive overpay, but the price on him is really, really high. Adrian Hauser cost the Cubs. I think his value is, what, 5.1, 6.1? You're probably talking Triantos level player, or maybe a straight-up deal for Wiggins. I think would be too valuable. A couple of pieces in that range, though. A couple of high A prospects that are about to go to Double A, maybe. But I appreciate you joining us, Melvin. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live every single evening around 9:45, bringing you the latest from the MLB trade deadline. We'll post a couple of videos throughout the day if anything does happen as well. Tony, welcome in. You think the Tigers get Suarez? Cubs and Mariners are seen as the favorite. That would certainly be a surprise. Thank you. Appreciate that, Melvin. On trade deadline day, we'll be live all day long. We'll start at 8 a.m. and we'll go through the deadline. We'll be live until probably 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. We'll be live for 11 straight hours. So that could be that's something I really encourage you guys to check out. We'll have every single trade broken down live on the air, reacting to them as they happen. Where teams will go, how far it will take them in the postseason. What does this do for their rebuild or restructure of their roster? Bryce Miller, Tyler Locklear for Suarez and Shelby Miller. Who says no? That's interesting. What's Locklear's value? I'm not sure what his value is. 2.2. It's very close. I might say yes to both sides of that, honestly. Matthew, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. You think the Reds get Suarez? Reds are the third team that was mentioned by John Heyman. He said that the Cubs, Mariners were seen as the two favorites with the Reds on the periphery there. Funny that two teams that had him before were looking to bring him back. I don't think there's a high-end bullpen piece that would help the Mariners coming back as well, though. So I think Miller would be the piece that you would put back, or that you would take back. If you didn't put Miller, say you go a little bit cheaper, say you do Logan Evans, you get another year of control, and I think you could get a second piece out of that deal as well. Like a Locklear. Walter Ford would be a nice piece. I don't think they would do Locklear instead. I think they would rather do the pitching Ford. Gets you 2 bites at the apple instead of one with just with Bryce Miller. Bobby Miller having a terrible year at AAA for the Dodgers. major overpay, but again, that's what they were looking for from the Yankees. And I think with as desperate as the Cubs are, they're all in. I think this is what it's going to take. Evans is starting right now for the Mariners, so I think you trade your number 5 starter and get this deal done. Wu and Gilbert? I don't think so, Mark. It'd be good for the Rangers, though, that's for sure. How many days did I take off this week? Just deadline day. I'll still be making videos while I'm at work, though, I'm sure. It's usually what I do. I usually go to lunch. I'll make a few videos. If there's something big that happens, I'll step off and make a video or two. Got 80 people with us now. Wow. Appreciate you guys joining us. This would be a trade for the Mariners winning the Eugenio Suarez sweepstakes. They would get Logan Evans and Walter Ford from the Mariners. It is a major overpay, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I would not be surprised if we find out after the deadline that the ask from the Yankees was Spencer Jones, and of course the Yankees would have said no to that. This is obviously a step beneath Spencer Jones, but still a massive overpay. But you're going to have to give to get here, and I think if Suarez goes to the Mariners, I think they'd be comfortable trying to get him an extension or sign him in the offseason. We'll go ahead and post that one. And I think that would be your move if you're the Mariners. I don't think you'd do two big moves. It's not Dipoto's style. He doesn't like to trade those top-end pieces, top-end prospects. Let's go back over to our standings. So we've done all 6 teams right now that are currently in playoff positioning. The last one we will do is the Rangers on the American League side. And then we'll do the National League here in just a moment. Put our Rangers hat on. What do we do at the deadline? We are 9-1 in our last 10. We need a bullpen piece. We need a right-handed bat. We could even do 2 bullpen pieces. There's rumors out there about Dylan Cease. Do you think there'll be less trades this year? Seems like the market is thin for trades this year. It is thin. I'll agree with you there. I do think there'll be less big trades this trade deadline season, but I think overall the number of trades will be just as many as there always are. A lot of middle relief, a lot of right-handed hitters for left-handed pitchers, those types of situations, platoon guys, those types of moves are going to be made quite a bit. So there will still be the quantity of moves, but as far as the impact of the moves, I think the prospects that are going to be dealt are going to be a little bit more impactful than they might otherwise be, because the lack of overall talent on the market is going to drive up prices for the talent that is available. There will be teams that decide to step away from this market and say, hey, this market doesn't have what we need. I'm comfortable standing pat and trying to roll the ball out there and win. Red Sox are one of those teams that I think could be in that camp, that have a lot of prospects to give if they push their chips to the middle. Maybe they make themselves a favorite for the American League to get to the World Series, but they could just as easily be, because of the talent coming back in those types of deals, they could just as easily find themselves bounced early in the postseason. Melvin, would Arenado waive his no-trade clause to join the Cubs? And if so, the Cards trade him in the division if the Cubs miss out on Suarez? I could see Arenado waiving his no-trade, but I don't see the Cubs necessarily bringing in Arenado. Kind of clogs up their roster as far as from a position standpoint. I think they'd prefer another option at third base rather than Arenado. Urias comes to mind from the Orioles. There's a couple of them from the Athletics, and Duhar could be a decent stopgap option, utility player for them. Not necessarily the impact of an Arenado, but certainly less cost. Cardinals have to eat a lot of that money too. Hank, 6 in a row. Let's go Rangers, best team in MLB after the All-Star break. They certainly are. But let's go ahead and do this trade. I'm going to start big. Pie in the sky. What are we looking for as the Rangers? I'm looking for a bat. I think I have a real chance to win a World Series. Bruce Bochy is not sticking around to see Wyatt Langford finish out his rookie contract through arbitration and then sign in free agency. That's not what Bruce Bochy is here for. Bruce Bochy came in. They made the addition of Jacob deGrom. They made the addition of Nathan Eovaldi. They make the addition of Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery at the trade deadline. They were all in 2023, and Bochy got a World Series. What do we see this year? They're playing much better baseball going into the trade deadline than they were that year. They started off the season terribly offensively. Pitching, best rotation in baseball, bullpen, best bullpen in baseball since June, and yet they still have one more hole back there. I think they're going to go big. Raymond, prediction for the Rangers. Caden Scarborough and Colton Curtis to the Braves for Marcell Ozuna. I'll put it this way. That's kind of a fallback to a fallback to a fallback option for me if I'm the Rangers. Because then I'm stuck with a two-headed monster at DH, and both guys are DH only. I can't put them in the field. And, oh, by the way, Marcell Ozuna is dealing with a hip injury. He's got 10 and 5 rights. He can decide to decline a trade anywhere. And if he's going to be a part-time DH with the Texas Rangers, I'm not sure he waives his 10-5 rights to go to Texas. I just don't think it's going to happen. Again, injured player. Down year. Let's see. Where do we go? I think we try to get the bat first. We were talking about this deal earlier. We're all in this year. After the way they've pitched this season, I think Chris Young is going to invest heavily in this team. In fact, let me go to the trade we made earlier. Let me see if it was actually one I put through or if it's one that we need to put in again. It was a 3-team deal. There it is. So the Rangers, we'll start with their end of it. They get Sean Murphy, replaces Jonah Heim at catcher, Matt Olson at first base, Thomas White and Noble Mayer to kind of reclaim some prospect value as well. You're like, Michael, that's a huge return. They must have given up some huge pieces to get that deal done. You're right, they did. So what did the Rangers give up to get that return? Sebastian Walcott, their number 1 prospect, number 4 in the entire game. Osuna, who's already Major League ready, can go into the outfield right now for the Marlins. Why do the Marlins do this? You get a real chance at a star in Sebastian Walcott. He does have star written all over him, like Jesus Mate for the Brewers. I love both of those two players probably the most of all the prospects in the game right now. I think those two are going to be very, very good. But Osuna goes out there and plays in the outfield right now. Probably plays right for them if I had to guess. Allows them to move off of Stowers if they wanted to. Why do the Braves move off of Matt Olson? Why do the Braves move off of Sean Murphy? Well, they're getting a controllable starting pitcher. Let me pull up this article from MLB Trade Rumors and just read you this paragraph here. They made the addition, as I mentioned at the top of our video, for Eric Fetty. Obviously, he's not a great pitcher this year, but they just need arms, period. They're absolutely terrible on the pitching side this year. They do have some arms, but almost all of them are injured. They have Spencer Strider and a bag of potato chips right now as their rotation. But let me read this to you. This news adds context to the trade with Grant Williams now going on the 60 IL, that is. He has issues with control. His fastball gets hit hard, but he's the one controllable piece that they have in their rotation that was putting up good numbers for him this year, and even he is now down. But while the Braves are out of contention, Fetty provides Atlanta a healthy arm in the wake of multitude of pitching injuries. Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, Spencer Schwallenbach, A.J. Smith-Shawver, and now Holmes are all on the IL for the foreseeable future. Now, they'll get those guys back. They'll get those guys back and healthy at some point. But Ronaldo Lopez, I have questions about his ability to be a solid starter in somebody's rotation. I think he's more of a 4 or 5 in rotation. Chris Sale, you only have for one more year. He's not a controllable piece. Schwellenbach is injured right now. Who knows how he's going to come back along with Smith-Shawver. I do like both of those pieces. But you look at this rotation. You got Spencer Strider, question marks with health around Schwellenbach and Shawver, and one more year of Chris Sale. You have nothing coming in your pipeline. I mean nothing on the pitching side. Not one guy. The only option they have is J.R. Ritchie, which I really do like. I think he's going to be next year's Grant Holmes for the Braves. That's the best case scenario. And then that's it. They're tapped out. Didier Fuentes, a guy they called up from AAA with a 5 ERA because they're so desperate for pitching in Atlanta, didn't work out. They make the trade with Texas just to bring in a starting pitcher or a guy who's been a starter in Dane Dunning just to eat innings. And now you do the Eric Fetty thing just to make it to the end of the season, so you don't have to ruin the pitchers at AAA even further than what you've already done damage so far this season, because your inability to have long-term controllable pieces that are in place and active on your roster for the Braves. Let's look at what they're getting, though. Sean Murphy, they're giving up a catcher who was injured last year, had a down year last year, but has 4 years left after this season, is having a really nice year. Offensively, he's probably a top 5 catcher in the game at a position where offense is scarce. He's lost that position, though, to Drake Baldwin. He is now the number 1 catcher there in Atlanta. That means Murphy is going to be settled over to the DH spot. Ozuna, we already talked about there. He's going to be free agent at the end of the year. Maybe you put Murphy at DH like the Rangers do with Heim or Higashioka whenever they need to. But you're basically getting off of the $15 million per season that you're owing to Sean Murphy. You're also trading Matt Olson, Mr. Atlanta Brave. Those are 2 big pieces. I'm not going to argue that those are big costs. It's going to take a nice package to be able to acquire or to be able to get off of those deals. And what do you give up? You get Edward Cabrera, a solid number 3 in anybody's rotation. I think for Atlanta, he's probably a number 2 for that team because of how little pitching they have. When Chris Sale is in there, he's probably their number 3. But Chris Sale's going to be gone in a year, and they don't have anybody else to really be there. I mean, look at their farm system. Ken Caminiti, their number 1 prospect, A-ball. He's 18 years old. He ain't helping you for another 3 years at best. J.R. Ritchie, the guy I really like, he's maybe at best your number 3 starter next year if everything breaks right and he has an incredible Rookie of the Year candidate season. But I think we're more likely going to see a Grant Holmes repeat. Walks a few less people than Grant Holmes. But I do like him. You got a couple other guys that are in the AAA window. But again, Hurston Waldrop, 16 ERA right now in the big club last year. This year, what's he doing at AAA? A 4.78 ERA. And you're like, hey, wait, didn't they just call up a AAA guy? Didier Fuentes? Let me show you what they called up because they had nobody to take a start. Nobody. He took 4 starts for the Atlanta Braves, 13.85 ERA. Oh, well, maybe it's just a rookie. He wasn't quite ready. Maybe his numbers in AAA were better. 4 starts in AAA, 5 ERA. 5 starts in AA, 5 ERA. High A, look how fast they're pushing him through because they have nothing on the pitching side. Nothing. I didn't realize how bad the Braves pitching prospects were until I did a dive into it later this afternoon after our live. They got nothing. You can tell me all you want about this lineup and how good they are, how they've got them all locked up. Ronald Acuna for 3 more years. Olson for 4. Murphy for 4. Austin Riley for 7. Yet the offense has been the issue for the last 2 seasons. And the pitching that they had is now going out the door and leaving in Max Fried. It's a tough situation. But you take 2 contracts. You save yourself the money right there. $15 million that you're saving on Sean Murphy per season. You're saving roughly $21 million on Matt Olson. You're getting Jonah Heim to take the spot of Sean Murphy behind the plate for at least another year. Mitch Bratt is probably going to help you in 2 years in the starting staff. You get a lottery ticket in Valdez. But now you've freed up roughly $40 million that you can spend on a starting pitcher in free agency this offseason, in addition to bringing in a starting pitcher that goes as your number 3 next year behind Chris Sale and behind Spencer Strider. That's a rotation that even after trading away Matt Olson and Sean Murphy, the offense should still be more than good enough. But it's just absolutely nothing left in the barrel there for Atlanta. I mean, if you're a Braves fan or not a Braves fan, you're just watching baseball and you're like, they surely wouldn't trade away those controllable assets. Surely they've got to have something in the tank. I mean, they're the Braves. They brought up all these minor leaguers and look how good they all turned out to be. Surely they couldn't have let the farm system go to seed that quickly. I turn and give you Didier Fuentes. Pitched in 24 in A-ball. This year, high A, double A, triple A, 5 ERA, 5 ERA, 5 ERA. We don't have anybody to take a start at all. We're going to let him start in the major leagues. 14 ERA. The guy wasn't ready. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to be rushed through the minors like he was this year by the Braves. That should not have happened. He should have spent the entire season at high A at best for the Braves. He's only 20 years old, and they ruined him already. You want to know how you ruin a young starting pitcher? You take away any and all confidence he might have. And they just did it to one of their better prospects that they had. Now, he may turn around and be a decent option somewhere down the line, but I don't think any one of us are fooling ourselves thinking Didier Fuentes is the future ace for the Atlanta Braves. Any of these other pitchers, A-ball, rookie ball, high A, guys with a 5 or 4 ERA at AAA that aren't going to be doing much for you at the big league level. They don't have much to go off of. They're going to have to bring in pitching. That's the long and short of it. So that's why you make this deal. You save $40 million in free agency. You spend that on a starting pitcher. Build out your starting staff a little bit until you can rebuild the farm system so you do not have what happened this year to the Atlanta Braves. Nobody's calling out Alex Anthopoulos for their handling of that pitching staff. And I'm wondering why. The Braves are the darling of the sport. They can do no wrong. They had Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz. Surely they know how to handle pitching. They had Fried, Strider. This is a good roster. They had Chris Sale. They got all their contracts locked up. They're not the Yankees. They can't spend like the Yankees. Sure. But they've got this team locked up. They've got a bright future. But they don't have any pitching to go with it. So that's why they make this deal. So if I'm the Rangers, I do everything in my power to try to get a first baseman in Matt Olson to come in because I think he'd be a linchpin for this organization. You're giving up Sebastian Walcott. You're giving up Osuna, Heim, Bratt, and Valdez. You're ended up getting 2 major league pieces, a prospect in Thomas White, who still is just now getting to Double-A. He's not there yet. He is a top 100 guy to at least give you somebody to kind of build towards the future with. Now you're giving up Walcott, but he's still got a long road to go. Mayer is another guy at the high A level. They were drafted in the same draft. They've been teammates basically since they were drafted by the Marlins. I think it'd be wise to try to keep both of them together. But if I'm the Braves, I understand the instinct to want to turn this down immediately. I get it. You think, oh, we got these great contracts. They're great players, but you got nothing on the pitching side coming forward. Say you decide to hang on to these 2 guys, Murphy and Olson. You don't make this deal. You don't bring in Cabrera. Where are you getting the funding to go ahead and add a starting pitcher in the offseason? Oh, well, we save the money on Osuna, and then we go out there and add a starting pitcher. What starting pitcher are you getting? Just out of curiosity. You're going to try to convince Justin Verlander to come back and take 10, 15 million from you? I don't think that's happening. And I don't want Justin Verlander at this point anyway. Nick Martinez, off of a terrible year this season for the Reds. You're not going to be able to afford Tyler Mahle. Maybe John Gray, since he had an injury, you convince him to take a 3-year deal, $45 million. Backload the deal so it's a little cheaper in the first couple of years. So you can afford the deal. But if you don't do this deal, what move do you make? What pitcher do you sign? So that's my first move. I solved my need in my first base. I solved my need at catcher. And I get a couple of tradable assets for future deals if I need to in Thomas White and Noble Mayer. I am giving up a nice pitching prospect in Mitch Bratt, though. He's just going, I believe, into Double-A, but he's had a really nice, strong year. He's kind of in that same window as Thomas White. I think Mitch Bratt's value is going to go up quite a bit here, so I think the Braves do really well in the deal. The question is, if you're the Marlins, is the star potential of Sebastian Walcott worth giving up the control of Cabrera and giving up 2 pitching prospects in Mayer and White in order to bring in Osuna to help you positionally and Walcott to give you a star? Now, you might argue that Osuna might not be the right piece. Okay. Throw in another piece, value around that point. But that's not a bad deal overall. Kingston, welcome back. Vida, Robert, appreciate you guys joining us. Let me try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Robert, the Blue Jays are the best team in baseball. Unbelievable. They have been the best team in baseball for about 65 games now. Really great job for the Blue Jays. If you want to check out our Blue Jays portion of the video, go towards the very beginning where we talked about what we would look at the deadline if we were the Blue Jays front office. Yankees have lost a lot of these close games. Rangers too. Hopefully that evens out. Run differentials are good for both teams. True. I do think the Rangers are an ascending team. Yankees, with the injury to Judge, have some serious question marks. They're going to have to solidify that roster a little bit more urgently, especially on the pitching side if I were them, because now you don't have Aaron Judge to fall back on and carry you when that offense craters like it has a couple of different points this season. They do have a pretty good offense overall, but every now and again they need Aaron Judge to be Aaron freaking Judge. That's why he's the best player in the game. And to say that you're not going to miss the best player in the game is ludicrous. I still think they got a good roster, a good offense overall, but they need pitching. We've seen them, that be part of the reason why they've kind of taken on this swoon recently, is because of the lack of pitching that they have, that they're using Marcus Stroman, that they're using rookies, and they just need somebody to come in there and settle things down at the back end of that rotation. Winning starting pitching can do a lot, absolutely. We just talked about the Braves and their lack of starting pitching, yet they have all the offense in the world. Acuna, Albies, Olsen, Baldwin, Murphy, Riley, Harris, who's starting to tear things up over the past 3 weeks. And yet their bats have gone silent the last couple of years. They haven't been able to put enough runs on the board, even with all that great talent offensively. But the pitching hasn't been good enough. They're relying on Raisel Iglesias and twine and duct tape and electrical tape with that bullpen. They don't really have really elite arms in that bullpen anymore. Dylan Lee might be their most valuable piece back there. Dylan Dodd did great today, by the way. Blue Jays are not playing them, guys. Put the ball in play. Don't strike out a lot. They are playing really sound baseball. I love George Springer and the renaissance he's having this year. Yankees don't put the ball in play much. They strike out too much, and they need to trade Stanton. He can put the ball in play. Strikes out all the time. He can't put the ball in play, I think is what you're trying to say. Stanton's an untradeable piece. He's staying there. Stanton needs to go. It's time for him to go. There's no way you're going to move him. Vida, any Giants trade rumors? They were rumored to be in on Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from the Pirates. They're also looking at several back end of the rotation starters and middle of relief bullpen guys as well. And there will never cease to be any rumors on Doval from their own bullpen as well. Blue Jays the best team in baseball right now. I would say that they're the best team over the last 65 games. I'd say them and the Rangers probably the best teams on the American League side. On the NL side, I think it's still wide open to see who's the best team. Brewers were that team up until recently, but the Marlins took care of business this weekend against them. They've played really well recently. Kingston, when do we start getting a lot of trades? I think I was hoping we'd be getting some today, but I think the Hall of Fame hangover, people trying to be a little bit polite to those Hall of Fame guys. Usually we start to get some rumors, and we have with Mackenzie Gore and the Cubs specifically, and a few other deals as well, but nothing really coming to fruition. We got Eric Fetty as well that actually got done today. Let's go ahead and check in on X and see if anything has happened yet. More rumors. Cubs are looking at Raisel Iglesias. There's the Mackenzie Gore stuff on for the Nationals and the Cubs. We got 3 videos out right now on our site about that. Wisenhunt's coming up for the Giants. Lugo gets the extension with the Royals, and that's about it. Not much else has come out. Hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit more active, though. It's already 11 o'clock. Central Time, that is. All right, so that would be the trade to help out the offense. Now we need a closer if you're Texas. And to me, if you're making that big of an investment there, you have Thomas White. You could take Thomas White, trade him to Minnesota and get Duran. You might be able to get Brock Stewart out of it as well, but I don't think Brock Stewart would help you compared to the bullpen pieces that you'd already have. But say you trade Thomas White there, you get Castro back in that deal. That wouldn't be a bad offer. You send Ezekiel Duran in that trade as well. But let's do the Pirates, because I think that's where ultimately Texas goes for their bullpen. And I think this trade is a lot easier to make than the one we just made with Sebastian Walcott. That's a lot of moving pieces. And at the deadline, if that deal does happen, it's probably going to have to happen in the next couple of days. It's not going to be last-minute move. His value is around 6.8 now. They bumped it up again. Okay. So let's say that we did that first move. So there's several pieces that are now off the board. You're looking for offensive talent. Osuna, I think, would be a great piece to go in here. Let's say you do Dreiling and Fitzgerald, who's having a great year down at, I think it's high A. Obviously, your value is way over for Bednar, but that would be the offer that would overwhelm anybody else, that's for sure. Could you get anything else if you're Texas? An expiring deal, perhaps. Andrew Heaney for depth would be an interesting piece. Rangers do like him. Tommy Pham is a bench guy, fourth outfielder type. Would be an interesting piece. Santana, I think, would be too expensive, and I don't think they want to go down that road again, especially with how they handled him the first time. Say instead of Dreiling, they go with a pitcher, or they go Cameron Cawley, I think, is the perfect type of Pirates player. He's kind of blocked right now. You trade Foscue in this deal to clean up your 40-man spots. And Duran in this deal as well to clean up your 40-man. I'm going to leave Duran out, actually. Foscue goes into the lineup right now for the Pirates, probably as their bench guy. Cawley goes in as their double-A player. Fitzgerald, a future piece as well. All for Bednar. That's not a bad deal. That might not beat other teams, but it's pretty close to his value. You heard a Doval Eflin rumor today. That's interesting. They do need starting pitching, but to trade Doval to get it, and what does Doval do for the Orioles anyway? I get you're worried about Bautista and the injury, but still. Not a bad deal there. And then, of course, you still have Jake Berger and so forth. You can figure out the rest from there. But that gets you a bullpen piece, gives you a first baseman. Berger probably becomes your right-handed complement at first base and at DH. What do you do with Jock Peterson would be a bigger question down the line. But honestly, if they end up having to put him on the injured list and see what he's like in the offseason and just put him off till next year, so be it. So he had a reoccurrence of his injury. They did that with Brad Miller the year they won the World Series. Yankees are 9-31 in 40 games. That bad? Dang. Drake profiles as a 2 or 3 and Brad a 3 or 4. Drake profiles more as a solid 3. Has the upwards ability of a 2. Brat has the abilities of a 2, but he's more likely a 4. Because he's still a lower level prospect. You're not really sure what they're going to become yet. So if you're looking for, worst case scenario for both of those players, I'd say Drake gets up to be a low end 3. All right, so that was the American League teams. It's getting a little bit late tonight. We'll do the National League tomorrow. If you guys want to check out our video tonight, we went through the Blue Jays, Tigers, Astros, Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, and Rangers deadline plans. Royals look like they're going to be standing pat. Might be looking for a replacement for Bubic in their rotation. Guardians, I don't think they're going to be making any buy additions, but I do think they could be an interesting seller. Rays have already declared themselves to be a seller here. So the American League side is very crystal clear now as far as what that playoff picture is likely to be. The question is, do the Red Sox continue their streaky play, win 5, lose 5? Yankees, can they stop this tailspin? Can they weather the storm without Aaron Judge? Astros, they got swept by the A's in 4 straight games. They lost Isaac Paredes. Can they weather the storm of injury-wise and be able to hold on to the division with both the Mariners and Rangers only 4 games back? Tigers, on a terrible losing streak, finally won a game against the Blue Jays at home. Can they solve their issues with their pitching staff that they have? And the Blue Jays have played really strong baseball. What moves do they make to put the finishing touches on a really nice season for the Blue Jays there? We'll get into the National League tomorrow, but I really appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Let's get into some of the actual rumors of the day before we go for the evening. We saw a couple of trades yesterday. Grichuk goes to the Royals. Rosario goes to the Yankees. And then we got the news that Aaron Judge was going to be down. He is going to be the DH for the rest of the season, it looks like, when he does come back from the injured list. What does that do for the Yankees going forward, though? Really want to focus on the American League because I think those are the teams that are going to be the most interesting to look at. Do they make the big swinging moves since the American League is so wide open? Red Sox did their moves this offseason, bringing in Crochet, Bregman, and then trading away Rafi Devers earlier. I think their big moves are pretty much done. I think they want to see what they have on the roster, and then the Duran move will probably happen this offseason. Too many outfielders, but unless they're getting a Joe Ryan here at the deadline, I don't think there's any way we see a move like that. If you guys want me to do a trade, please feel free to send it in our chat right now. We'll be live for probably another 20-30 minutes here. Not quite enough time to do the National League, but we can do a few trades for the National League teams if you'd like. Robert, the Yankees are lost. How they got Stanton batting first. Unbelievable. He can't make contact. Also can't run. I get it. Stanton's not exactly the greatest player since sliced bread, but they got to do something with him. He's going to be on their roster, just like the Rangers got to do something with Jock Peterson. Twins have to do something with Carlos Correa. Padres are stuck with Bogarts. Dodgers are stuck with Conforto. Yankees are also stuck with Stroman. Red Sox are stuck with Yoshida. Eflin to Giants trade, we can do that one for you, Vida. Let's go ahead and do the Giants if we were going to add some starting pitching there. Let's start with Eflin, and then we can do a Giants deal. We got so many people in our live right now. You guys are making me want to go ahead and do the National League. If you guys want me to go ahead and do the National League, let's see if we can get y'all to stick around a little longer here. And I'll go ahead and do the National League this evening. The heck with work tomorrow. Let's get those likes up as well. We got 70 of you guys in the chat. Got 24 likes. Let's see if we can bump that number up, and we'll do the National League as well. But you want Eflin to the Giants? What would it cost? Not going to be a lot. Eflin is not a great pitcher this season. At best, he's a number 3. His value, negative 0.6, expiring deal. Gives them somebody to help out in that rotation. Depth, honestly, is what you're looking for. This is the exact target I think the Giants will go after here. What would make it interesting for the Orioles? Why would they want to do this deal? I think you're going to be looking right in this range. And I think you're going to be looking pitching. Bresnahan makes some sense as kind of a main piece in this deal. And then you could do, they do really well with position player prospects. Manuel Mercedes, give you 2 bites at the apple there. If you go back to the Orioles, I want to look at their other starting pitchers because they got a lot of guys that have not had good years that could be available for very low cost. Morton Sugano comes to mind. Send Sugano out to the West Coast. I think if the Giants throw in a very low-cost option here, it could be an interesting one. Vinicio. There you go. 3 absolute by definition, lottery tickets to take off Sugano and Eflin off your hands. Bresnahan being the best piece of that group anyway. Where does he rank in the Giants? San Francisco, Bresnahan, where does he rank? Number 11, A-Ball. He's pitching well. That probably would get the deal done. Bresnahan and then 2 absolute lottery ticket, who knows what you're getting, trade pieces. Major overpay. I don't know how much of a major overpay it is. You're getting 2 starters out of it. Brew Crew, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Brewers need offense. That they absolutely do. I actually really like this trade for the Giants. They kind of rebuild some of the depth that they lost in that Devers deal. This would give them a legitimate chance to get to the wild card this year. That's a pretty good deal. You're not firing your coach right now, your manager. You're not letting go of Boone. In the offseason, maybe, but that ain't happening right now with 50, 60 games to go. I get the hate for him, but come on, man. Jeremy, welcome in. Almost missed your comment up there. Appreciate you joining us. Let's see how many likes we got. 26, 27. If y'all bump it up here, I'll go ahead and keep this thing going. Say hi in the chat, interact. Got about 70 of you guys with us. You want us to do the National League next? We can do it. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. There you go, getting a couple more on there. I'll go ahead and do the National League. The heck with it. Thank you guys for sticking around and making this so much fun. I got energy. Y'all are giving me a lot of energy tonight. I was ready to go to bed around 8 o'clock. Took a quick little nap, and I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and keep this thing going, shall we? Thank you, guys. I saw a few more likes pop in. Appreciate that. Hit that like. All right, let's go ahead and do this. We've already done the American League. Teams that'll probably be buyers. Let's go to the National League. Your division leaders right now. Cubs, Mets, Dodgers, Brewers tied with the Cubs anyway. Let's start with the Chicago Cubs. I know there's a lot of Cubbies fans out there. What do they need at the deadline? Put the Cubs hat on. What do they need? Cubs absolutely need an ace. First and foremost, give me an ace. I want an ace. Give me an ace. They need it. They also need a number 3 starter in this rotation. Somebody who can take the ball in a playoff game. Their bullpen could use an arm. Maybe even another closer option. They could use a utility infielder as well. But they need a lot. They got a lot of holes on this roster, even as good as they've been. They're all in this year after making the trade for Kyle Tucker, and that trade is going to hurt for years to come if they don't re-sign Kyle Tucker anyway. They're all in. So where do they go? Well, we made a couple of videos already this past week talking about Mackenzie Gore, posted another one today, and now there are several articles finally catching up that the Cubs are targeting Mackenzie Gore. So that's where we'll start. They need an ace. Let's go get him an ace. He's going to be the most expensive piece for them to get. So we go to the Cubs. We go Mackenzie Gore. 3.5 ERA for the Nationals. 67. They've actually dropped his value by a couple here. He was at 70 a couple of days ago. All right. So you're going to have to start this deal, I'd imagine, with Horton. Ballesteros probably in this deal as well. There's your 1 and 2. Rojas, your 3. And 1 of Clase or Alcantara in this deal as well. They bumped up Casey's value up to 15. I think that would get you the deal right there, Owen Clase. But I think he's your fallback for Kyle Tucker if he leaves. So let's go Alcantara instead. That deal right there, if I'm the Nationals, I'm very tempted by. Ruiz was supposed to be great. A lot of these Dodgers catchers ultimately have not worked out that were top prospects. So I think they could use a Ballesteros there. Alcantara gives them a center field piece. Honestly, I think you could play all three of them. Cade Horton gives you a starting pitcher to go in the rotation right now for Gore. And Rojas gives you a shortstop for C.J. Abrams eventually down the line. Or you put Rojas over at second. Garcia's been good there, though. You figure out the positioning later, I suppose, on Rojas. I don't think you say yes to this deal, though, if you're the Nationals. It's close, but you're not quite there. So we go back to the Nationals. We go to their bullpen. And we look at Kyle Finnegan. They need a closer. Or a guy that can be a setup guy. And Finnegan, I think, would be a great option for them. Now, I think if you're doing this, it's going to be expensive. It's going to hurt. But you're going to have to include Jackson Wiggins in this deal. This gets them a number one starter, gives them a bullpen piece. Gore sticks around for 2 more years, which is why you're probably comfortable with this return. It is an overpay, but you're keeping Owen Casey, which replaces Kyle Tucker if he leaves in free agency. You still have PCA. That's a very strong Cubs team. Let's go ahead and propose it. I actually like this deal. Cubs get their ace, Mackenzie Gore. Now, I still think they need another playoff starter even after this deal. It's going to cost them a pretty penny to do it as well. Where do we go? Well, I think Dylan Cease is probably the one guy that they would really like to bring in. Postseason has a more proven track record than some of these other guys. Mackenzie Gore doesn't exactly have a playoff track record. Fairbanks and Castro, 2 front-end starters for the Cubs. I would like Castro as a utility player. Fairbanks ain't going anywhere from the Rays, though. I like the idea. But I think if you're getting Finnegan in this deal, it kind of solves the need for a late inning reliever. Doesn't make it as pressing. Do I think it fills the need completely? No. I still wouldn't be completely satisfied with Finnegan if I were the Rangers. I still wouldn't be completely satisfied with this if I was the Cubs. But I think even after this deal, they would still need one more starter. So there's our first trade. Let's go and make our second one. We're going to go Cubs. We're going to go to the Padres. We're going to go Majors. We're going to go expiring. We're going to go Dylan Cease. Now, they're said to be looking for a controllable corner outfielder. If they're trading Alcantara in the other deal, it's hard to see them trading Owen Casey in this deal. I just don't think it would happen. I think they're willing to trade one, but not both. Ben Brown becomes the next guy up. I don't think that'd be the right value there. So then you get into this range here. Triantos, no. The value just isn't really there unless you're going really cheap. So while I think Dylan Cease would be a great option, if you're including the outfielder there in that trade, I just don't think the teams line up. So where else could you go for a starting pitcher that doesn't cost you a whole lot? We talked about Mel Kelly. Who would be another starter? Anderson from the Angels? Hendricks? He pitched well today against the Mariners. Do you go get Severino or Springs? I think those would be interesting options. Controllable as well. What is their value? Springs, negative 0.5. Not bad. That's a gettable piece. Severino, negative 13. Again, with the field that they play on, their numbers are going to look ugly anyway. But if you get Springs, he could be a number 3 in somebody's rotation going into the postseason. Probably more accurately a 4. But I wouldn't mind Springs. He pitched well against Houston the other day. So say you go and get Springs, low cost, and he got him for 1 more year. What would you have to give up? It's a very low cost, so I don't even think you have to go on the first page. I think you throw in, let's see, they're looking for probably starters in return. They probably have to sign somebody in free agency anyway to replace Springs next year. So if you go Nazir Mule as the first piece, and then the second piece, Hmm. They got a lot of shortstop prospects here. Of course, they can flex out wherever as they grow into their position. Say you do Moreno. Low cost. You're doing this deal for Mule and taking a pure lottery stab in the dark at Moreno. But that would get you 2 starters to your rotation right now if you're the Cubs. Let's validate it. I do like this deal. Let's look one other spot, though, for a starter. You could go to the Marlins, but again, I don't think you have enough ammunition to do another big trade for Cabrera. Cal Quantrill is there. You could do something like that. Similar deal here. Doesn't exactly move the needle. Charlie Morton has had a nice rebound over the last couple of months. Maybe he would be the starting pitcher you could go for, or an Eflin. Trevor Rogers would be the guy I would want to target here. If I could get Rogers to the Cubs, Cubs would have to give up a decent return here. But it's not going to cost you Casey. That's the good part. Triantos is a underperforming positional prospect, but he's only 21. I'm not sure he qualifies as a headliner in this deal, but he could be one. Juan Tomas. Probably a little too rich for Rogers. Let's go back over here. Kramer. Wells. He's injured. Nobody else really fits there. Okay. Let's keep it going. One last team here. Who else has some pitching that they're looking to get rid of? Pirates, you could go Andrew Heaney. He's been a number 3 in a playoff rotation before and won a World Series doing it. That would be interesting. You could go Little with the Rays. Would love to have gone Lugo for the Royals, but that's obviously not happening now with the extension. You could go Adrian Hauser with the White Sox, but he's not playoff proven. So maybe Andrew Heaney. The last option would be Mel Kelly. You'd have to overpay for him a little bit here because you're going to have to outbid everybody else. But if you start with Tomas and Mule, go back to the Cubs. And do Melendez in this deal, I think that gets you pretty close. So then your rotation going into the playoffs would be Mackenzie Gore. Mel Kelly, I think he'd probably be the number 2. Imanaga would be your 3 in a postseason series. And you added a bullpen piece already in Finnegan. You could add a lower level utility player, but this basically takes care of the major shopping for the Cubs. You get 2 starters, one of them controllable, and you hope to re-sign Mel Kelly in the offseason, along with Kyle Tucker, along with every other piece that's heading towards free agency, because they got a lot. It's not a bad deal. Nobody's close to the majors in that deal either for the Cubs. Yeesh. That's an interesting name there, Sneak. Where would Cease go then, if not for the Cubs getting Gore? Yankees come to mind. Blue Jays come to mind. Mets come to mind as well. But that would be what I'd do if I'm the Cubs. You get Gore, Kelly, Finnegan, and then you fill out the rest of your roster with a smaller deal for a utility player. Those kinds of things. Let's go on to the next team. Milwaukee Brewers. They're said to be looking for a right-handed bat. Their interest in Adolis Garcia a couple of months ago was legitimate. And I think they're looking for that type of a player still. An impact, ready for the moment, right-handed hitter. Boyd as your 2. Would I start him over Imanaga? He's been pitching much better. Maybe Boyd would be the 3, but I would like Kelly as the 2 because he's been in a postseason series before. Marte to Texas. I don't want Marte. If this was 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, Marte, yes. Now I don't want any part. All right. So the Brewers. They need a right-handed bat more than anything else. Controllable starting pitching would be nice, but they're not looking for it actively on the market. They have some pieces that have real trade value, so if they wanted to go big, they really could. Say like a Joe Ryan, if you included Jesus Mate, I think you could get a deal there. In case you're wondering what the pieces they have, Mate's value is 68. Think of him kind of in the same vein as Sebastian Walcott. Mizrachi obviously is their future in the rotation. He ain't going anywhere. But right-handed bat, where could you go? Soler is no longer an option for the Angels. You could go for Ward. I would like that player for them. Taylor Ward. Let's see here. Osuna. He comes to mind from the Braves, but with the hip injury, I'm not exactly looking to bring in injured players. Cardinals, you could go Nootbaar perhaps. Arenado, none of those players really interest me. Suarez, there is an outside chance they could be a player for him. Honestly, I think they could be a real player for him, but he's a rental, and he's going to cost an arm and a leg. I think they'll be outbid anyway by the Cubs and Mariners, so I think no. Giants aren't trading away pieces for you. Guardians, maybe, but they don't really have much offensive pieces to begin with. Marlins, I don't think you're getting Stowers. Marte, the quietest 290 hit in MLB this year. Is that really what he's hitting this year? I haven't looked in a while. If that's what he's hitting, I don't think the Mets would move him, though. Yeah, 280. 289. 50 hits, 173 at-bats. 4 homers, 5 stolen bases. Hitting 500 over his last 7 games. Good Lord. 362 over his last 30. There's no way the Mets trade him. No way. Nice renaissance year for him, though. All right, so where do you go for a right-handed bat if you're the Brewers? You go maybe to the Orioles. They got a couple of bats that they might be willing to move on from. Nobody really there, though, that sticks out as an easy target for them. Let's see here. Padres. Not really the pieces there offensively. Pitching, they might have a couple. Pirates have pitching, no offense. Rangers aren't looking to get rid of Adolis Garcia. Rays, they could be a team for Yandi Diaz. That would make some sense. One year left on his deal as well. Not a bad option. I like Yandi Diaz. We'll keep that one in mind. Reds, they're looking to stand pat or buy here at the deadline, not sell. Rockies, they don't really have much. Royals aren't selling. Tigers aren't selling. Twins, Bader, that's about it. White Sox, Robert, he could be a nice fit for them. Who else is on an expiring deal here? Hauser would help out in the rotation in case they have issues. Probably Robert would be the piece out of that team. But I think Diaz would probably be the biggest impact for the Brew Crew. You ended up getting Yandi. Brewers go for around $8 million. You're looking. Letson would be an interesting piece. Payne would be an interesting piece. But I think they'd be looking more in this range. See if they could pry out maybe one of these guys. Let's go to the Brewers prospects and see which one we'd want if you're the Rays. What was his, was one of them Payne? We're looking Arenamo, Adams, and Wilkin. Okay. Adams, first base, third base, 241, 899 OPS. That's nice at Double-A, so he's starting to prove himself. Walks are nice. Strikeouts are a little high, but strikeout to walk ratio is good. A little bit of a stolen base guy as well. Not a bad option. I like that one. Wilkin was the other. Double-A 230, 942 OPS. Bit more of a strikeout guy and a bit more of a walk guy. Not bad. And the last one was the Armitage guy. Arenamo, there it is. High A, unproven. Higher average, lower OPS. Similar type numbers. All three of these guys are very similar players. I think the Brewers would probably give up Wilkin first, closer to the majors. The Rays would probably be more interested in him anyway. So that's your first piece. Second piece in this deal for Diaz, you're probably looking 3 or 4. Luis Lara comes to mind. Bryce Mesich as a starting pitcher comes to mind. $13 and $15 prospects for Diaz. 4.4 at A-ball. He's young, though, so he's got time to figure it out. Was he drafted high? Second round last year. And then Luis Lara was the other one. Top 10. Signed a few years ago, 20 years old, Double-A, not hitting very well. Okay. So, I think it'd probably be Mesich going back the other way. And there's your trade for Yandi Diaz. That's the one bat they really need. Maybe not the power bat that they're looking for, but he's certainly a high average and would fit really well on that Brewers team as their DH first base, along with Vaughn and whoever else they're rotating in at those two spots. I like that. That'd be kind of a finishing offensive piece for them. And with one extra year of control, it's very nice not to have to do that for a rental. I like that deal. All right. We've done the Brewers. We've done the Cubs. Let's keep it rolling. Where do we go for the Mets? They need center fielder. They need ace. Can you guess which one I'm going to go for first? With the Mets, to me, they need an ace at the front of that rotation to take the ball in a postseason series. They've had some nice, storybook seasons for a couple of players, but I want reliable performance. And until this season, the player that I'm going to go for, I had questions about that reliability. I do not have those questions anymore. Dylan Cease has earned everything he's gotten this year. Very unlucky pitcher, but I think he would be a guy that we could trust to take the ball in Game 1, Game 2, or Game 3 of a series for the Mets. And with the financial resources, they might even be able to re-sign him. So you bring in Dylan Cease. Now you need bullpen help as well. And there's a few options for you. You could go Robert Suarez. I think that would be a really good option for the Mets as an 8th inning guy. Adam comes to mind as well. But I think Suarez would be the guy. You get 2-for-1 shopping here. And for the Mets, you're going to have to give to get in this deal. The one player I would really want, if I'm the Padres, is Tong. I don't think this trade gets you there. I think it gets you darn close, but I think the value would be just a little too high. But it's close. Is there one other player the Mets could use off of this Padres roster that could get this deal across the finish line? Morahone. He's having a great year. Finally figured things out with that changeup. Using the kick change, just like Crochet, Jack Leiter have all used it to really astounding results. Morahone is another one of those guys. He's only got a year left of control as well, and he's got a lot of value. Which is why I think it would make more sense to trade him to get a bigger return of major league talent than trading Adam, who only has a 1.1 value. He's been probably the best reliever pitch for pitch than everybody else this season. So the Mets really beef up their bullpen in this deal. This trade would be worth Jonah Tong. Plus, it would give give you somebody else as well off the major league roster. Okay, so where do you go? You're looking for probably another 8 to meet the value, probably looking at another 12 to get the right value for the giving up Dylan Cease. You get controllable starter in Tong. He played in the futures game. I think he probably is in the rotation next year for the Padres, if I had to guess. Let me see where he's at, though, in his development, what level he's at, just to make sure. Tong is at Double-A and throwing really well. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, now where else do you go? Vientos? No. Buto? No. Sproat? Maybe. They're looking for a controllable outfielder, though, in return. So maybe Gilbert could be that guy. I like that. And that gets you pretty close to the value. And now you need probably another 4. And then you're there for this deal. This trade actually could make sense. Santucci. Where does he rank in their system? Gilbert is 12. 258, 817. Really good at A-ball. He went to AAA, and he's still putting up numbers. Okay. Santucci, Double-A. Results are strong so far, but he's young. I would do it. So Santucci would be the final piece. It's going to hurt, but this would really increase your ability in the bullpen. You shorten the game down to 6 innings. Morahone takes the ball in the 7th. Suarez the 8th. Diaz the 9th. And Soto could, mix in with all the other guys in the 6th and 7th occasionally. Padres, meanwhile, Gilbert goes into their outfield probably next season. I'm not sure if he goes in there this year. Tong is their starter next year as well, I believe. Santucci probably 2 years away. Edward Cabrera to the Jays. We can look at that one here in a minute, Daniel. Melvin, Brewers need bullpen help to get to Miguel. I think they could get a guy like in that framework of a Finnegan, a Helsley. Kind of a setup option that doesn't cost a whole lot. A Jason Adam type of player. Phil Maton, possibly. In division would be tough from the Cardinals, though. Maybe they go for Holverson from the Rockies. That would be an interesting deal. We can do Cabrera to the Jays, though, here in a bit. But I like this deal for both teams. The question is, would this be too much of a, giving up on this season for the Padres? But I do like the return they're getting for sure. The question would be, what do they do to solve their issues now that they'd be giving up 2 elite arms in their bullpen? They didn't really replace him in their bullpen. Maybe you try to take off one of these DFA guys at the deadline. I'm guessing for the Rangers, they'll DFA Jacob Webb if they don't trade him, if they add a relief pitcher. He goes in as probably the 8th inning guy in front of Adam, I would guess, if the Padres were to do something like this. You almost want to pull the trigger for Duran to the Rangers? So do I. I would love that for Texas. Mullins to the Mets. Well, I think this solves their need for the rotation and the bullpen. I think for the outfield, I don't really care for Mullins too much, but appreciate you joining us, Ryan. The reason why I don't like Mullins is because of that arm. It's a wet noodle out there in center field. He's, to me, best utilized as a 4th outfielder on a playoff team, as a good bat to come off the bench, left-handed hitter, somebody to come in and pinch run. Covers a lot of ground out there in center field still as a speed guy, but not as much as he used to. And defensively, throwing the ball into the infield, doesn't exactly get it there, doesn't exactly make the right throw to the right base every time, so he's lacking some of that. I would rather go for Luis Robert, who's a much better defender at this point, and has certainly proven to be a better offensive piece over the past couple of weeks. I would choose Luis Robert. Daniel wanted us to do a Cabrera to the Jays. We'll do that one first before we do the next one. At some point, can we do a Pete Fairbanks to the Jays trade? I'm interested to see what it would look like. Take your time. We did quite a bit of Blue Jays trades at the beginning of our video, so I know we've been live for 2.5 hours. If you go back to around the 10-minute mark at the opening of our video, we did some trades for the Jays as well. But we can go ahead and do another Jays trade here real quick before we do our next team. We've done a trade a couple of times before for Cabrera to the Jays, but just to kind of show what it would look like again. Cabrera around 25 valuation right now. He goes to the Jays. Jays end up sending position pieces back. They don't really have too much here, but Kasevich, Roden would have to be a name you would consider. They more have pieces that fit, teams that are willing to take back pitching. Like Yasevich would be a great piece as a headliner. But I think in this iteration of the deal, Kasevich would probably be there. Roden would have to be there. And maybe a Relvis Martinez. I don't really think that fits, though, because all those guys at the major league level. Maybe Bonilla as a young guy. And that's not worth giving up 3 years of a number 3 starter in somebody's rotation. Marlins say no to that all day long. Now, the best deal they could make to me would be Namala as the headliner piece. That would be something that catches their attention. And then if you then put Stefan as kind of the finishing piece in this deal, that deal I think would be a legitimate one. Steve, appreciate you joining us. It'll be a buyer's market because too many good players with expiring deals that teams would want to sell to get values back. Well, every year we see teams that are in sell positions that ultimately hold on to those guys because they believe they can sign them in the offseason, or they want to make sure they get the best value in return and aren't willing to sell low, even if it means not selling them for anything on the market. We see that happen every single year. So while I think there are plenty of options available, none of them are elite, none of them are massively difference-making. Bullpen arms the same kind of a way, but every year there's teams that don't sell off those deadline pieces and are left holding the bag. That doesn't mean prices will be in the favor of these teams, but we shall see. Welcome in, Wolfie. Appreciate you joining us. Yankees trash, they're missing the playoffs. Well, I mean, with Judge's injury, it's not out of the question now. I will agree to you on that one. Oh, look, I'll take a look. Just popped in. Robert or Mullins better for the Mets? Robert. I'm not a Mullins guy. I'm really not. I like that comment there, Daniel. Yeah, I feel like people forget that you're not only making an offer to the team that you feel is fair both ways, but you have to out-offer other teams in offers. True. But you also can't sit there as a seller and sit there and be like, oh, I've got a bird in a hand. Now let me go ahead and try to get a better offer and then end up being left with nothing because the other team that gave you the offer went and did something else. Like in the offseason, the Cardinals had the offer for Arenado. Arenado turned down the deal to Houston. Ultimately, they were unable to get a deal anywhere else because other teams filled their needs. Houston went ahead and instead of waiting for Arenado to take his time with his decision with Houston, They went ahead and made their deal with Christian Walker before they even circled back to the Cardinals anyway. So, deadlines move fast. We're only, 3.5 days away from the deadline. Just a reminder, we'll be live again every single evening leading up to the deadline at 9:45. Be sure to join us, for our lives on those days. And then on trade deadline day, we'll be live at 8 o'clock in the morning all the way through the entirety of the deadline till probably about 6, 7 o'clock Central Time. So we'll be live 11 hours on Thursday. Be sure to join us for that one as well. All right, let's keep this thing going, kind of wrap up the National League here. We've done the Mets, we've done the Brewers, we've done the Cubs. What about the Dodgers? One trade that we did a couple of weeks ago that's been sticking in my head for a while now is the Cleveland Guardians. Guardians have exactly what the Dodgers need. Quan, a controllable outfielder, low cost, high on base guy, no nonsense, and would fit perfectly out there in LA. Doesn't have a no trade clause either. They also have an elite closer, which has been an issue for them as well. But the Guardians, right now, they're standing pat. They don't have a trade yet that they've made that makes them a seller or a buyer. If they make this move, this is a clear sell move. With the Royals standing pat and adding small pieces around the periphery, with the Rangers taking off, the Rays kind of coming back, Yankees all over the place now, Red Sox, good one week, bad one another week. You don't really know where they're going to finish. There's a chance to get into the wild card. There's even a chance to catch Detroit, as bad as they've been playing. But this is a difference-making trade here. And that's why I think this trade would reset the Guardians for the next decade with this trade. Let's go ahead and look into the deal. Now, for me, you start with Jose DePaula or Zaire Hope. Let's go ahead and start with DePaula. You need to get up to probably 88, so plus the extra value here, you're probably looking 95 valuation. Second piece you're getting out of this deal, Sirota. Third piece you get out of this deal, Ferris. Fourth piece, Quintaro. Fifth piece, Lindsay. And let's see how close we are right now. 89 to 88. This deal is close. This would make me think about it if I'm the two teams. Dodgers, they do it obviously because they're in win now mode. The heck with the prospects. Although they've done a nice job of building that prospect depth and resisting the urge to trade them. But we've seen them go and attack opportunities before. Remember Scherzer, remember Turner, remember Machado? These are difference-making pieces that would be around for a couple of years. And you look at it from the Guardians' perspective. DePaula and Sirota are probably starters in your outfield for the next 6 years. Quintaro could very well be the same. Ferris goes into your rotation next year. Lindsay takes over for you at one of your middle infield spots for the next decade. That's some really high-quality pieces you're getting back in this deal. Now, like I said, you're giving up two really strong pieces. Probably the best closer in the game, pitch for pitch, right now in Clase. Quan, a high-value, elite on-base guy, contact rate, no nonsense. He's not going to command the spotlight, but he's going to get on base in front of Ohtani, Freeman. Really lengthen out that lineup. Really help be that finishing piece for that offensive group. But I think this deal is close, but I still think the Guardians say no to this one. So if you're the Dodgers, you're going to have to step up the offer one more piece. And you go probably Yang, maybe George, although you're getting three outfielders in this mix. Zazueta, I don't even know what he's done. Let me check on him. I haven't heard of him before. Zazueta? It's a very interesting name. It's number 17 in their system. A-ball, 245 ERA, 62 innings, 73 strikeouts. Another great pitching prospect. Yeah, Honestly, I think that value is low based off of those numbers. That deal, you absolutely have to do the deal. Brendan, so Passan updated his trade deadline big board, and the Jays are linked to every pitcher possible on the market. I mean, the Blue Jays are going to be aggressive, don't get me wrong, but that aggressive? You got to scour the market, I suppose. Dodgers and Padres are outstanding at producing solid prospects. They are. 3 days away is the deadline. Steve, AL only. Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rangers, Mariners, Rays should be buyers that has realistic to compete for a wild card. Rays are sellers. They already told everybody they're sellers. Mariners have already bought and will continue to buy. Blue Jays, I think, are not necessarily a wild card team. I think they're going to win the division. They're the best team on the AL side right now, and I think they're the one team that's going to, take away from their division or run away from their division because the Yankees aren't catching them anytime soon. Red Sox, I don't think, have the ability to catch them anytime soon. So I think they end up winning their division going away. I think they probably lock up one of the two buys. And then it's going to be a dogfight between the Central winner and the West winner to see who gets that second one. Last thing you want to be is that third division winner that's stuck playing in wild card round because you never know what's going to happen. You catch a really hot wild card team, like right now, say that the Astros or the Tigers end up being that final division winner, the lowest of the top or the lowest division winner out of the three, and you end up playing the 6th seed. Right now, that would be the Mariners. Good luck with that pitching staff and with the offense that's coming there with Cal Raleigh. If Texas overtakes them, good luck with them having a better rotation than you immediately. Bullpen's been performing better and the offense coming around. They're the hottest team right now in a shorter sample size than the Blue Jays, but you'd argue the Rangers probably take that series right now. Even without the additions they're probably going to make here at the deadline. Anthony Michael, I'm seeing new reports coming from people who have actually covered the Marlins that have been writing articles saying teams are targeting Perez and Ferreira instead of Sandy for starters. Well, yeah, Perez is a much better piece. Sandy is going to have to show that he's back to being his old self, or at least can be his old self again before he'll be traded. Somebody might take a lottery ticket on him like the Dodgers or Padres, but outside of that, nobody else should be trading for him. The Tigers look most likely to be the third division winner. That's kind of my thoughts as well. Steve, NL is more clear. Only Padres, Giants, and Reds should be fighting for the wild card. True, but that doesn't mean the other teams that are winning the division or ahead of them in the wild card, shouldn't be making additions as well. But I really like this deal if I'm the Dodgers. It's expensive. It's very expensive. But what do you care? You have 5 aces in your rotation when healthy. And oh, by the way, Blake Snell had his 4th rehab outing. He's going to be back on the big league and the big leagues right after the deadline. So their rotation will be almost back to full strength. Their bullpen still is going to need some work. Trinan looks like he's getting closer to coming back as well. But this put Emmanuel Clase back as your closer, and Quan takes over for you in left. That's a finishing move for the Dodgers that guarantees them a NLCS appearance. Jay's linked to everyone from Ryan to Gore all the way down to Reed Detmers. Detmers is in the bullpen right now. Anthony, Michael, does it make sense for the Tigers to trade for Perez or Cabrera? No and no. They need bullpen. They need veterans. They need somebody who's been in a postseason situation that can handle a pennant race. They don't need to go with guys who've never experienced either of those things. I think they'd be nice options, but they already have plenty of starters right now. They have some issues at the back end of their rotation. They had poor performance recently, but I think their rotation will be just fine. If they get somebody like a Cabrera, I think that would help them absolutely, but I'm not saying that's their number one need. Let's go ahead and validate it. It's a fair trade. I agree. I think it is pretty fair. 2 starters that you can wish upon, 3 outfielders you could envision making it, and Kellen Lindsley. Are any of those guys MLB ready? Sorota's close. But I really like that deal if I'm the Guardians. And I really like it if I'm the Dodgers. All right, so that would be your Dodgers move. Let's go back over to our standings and check out the next team. Wild card, we already did those there. Phillies would be next. Where do we go for good old Philadelphia? They just lost with Zach Wheeler on the mound to the Yankees. They're not a perfect team. They could use some bullpen help. They could use a center fielder. They're strangely in there for Eugenio Suarez, which I think can only be Dave Dombrowski doing. But they're not going to be as desperate as the other teams in there. But to me, there's some discussion about Dylan Cease as well. I don't see that. I think they're going to be looking for relief help and center field. Quan is one of the names that they had been connected to. I think that would be a really good option for them. Mullins has also been a name they've been connected to. Robert has been one they've been connected to for a year and a half. Not many teams would be willing to trade for a rental like Suarez last season. Only one top 100 prospect, 90 I think, got traded. Top 100 guys are tough to pry out of teams nowadays. Nowadays you can get guys that are in that 3 to 5 range outside of the top 100 on the entire MLB scale. But if you're in the top 5 on another team, those guys did move quite a bit. Does it make sense for them to trade Stowers? I still wouldn't do it. Unless I was completely overwhelmed, like that offer for to the Guardians for Quan and Clase. Unless you're getting that level of offer, that type of return, I wouldn't do it. Daniel, just look back at the Yohan Duran and Brock Stewart trade. I love it. That's one of the best for the Jays. I do like it as well. Appreciate you actually going back and looking, Daniel. Thank you so much. Try to make content that you guys enjoy. So I do, when you guys actually enjoy the content, let me know. I do appreciate that. I know you guys did some super chats in our earlier live today. Thank you guys for those. YouTube does what they can to kind of help out monetization, but I do this for fun primarily. I don't make a 9-to-5 job out of this. I would love to. Been trying to get it there for a while now, but we aren't close yet. I'll put it that way. But the more you guys interact, the more you guys enjoy this content, the better these things get. What team was I just doing? The Phillies? Yeah. So center field, bullpen, to me, have got to be the priority here. Where could you go? Nobody makes sense so far. Donovan, no. Quan from the Guardians is an interesting opportunity. Mets have nobody. Nationals don't really have anybody. Orioles for Mullins. I just don't see Mullins as a good piece for them at all. O'Neal Cruz. That would be interesting. O'Neal Cruz. I know the Yankees were connected to O'Neal Cruz, but would that be an interesting fit for the Phillies? I think being around Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber would do wonders for his career. The player O'Neal Cruz might like that more than the two teams. Bender to the Phillies, I would like that one. Certainly very underrated, that's for sure. Thank you, man. I can't wait for the trade deadline either. Thank you for that. That's very nice of you, Daniel. Thank you very much. Appreciate those super chats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm curious. O'Neal Cruz isn't a name I've heard with the Phillies, but Dombrowski is a guy that's an all-or-nothing type of a person. If the Yankees are in there, I'd imagine other teams have called. He is at a position of need for them. Unlikely as it may be, what would a trade look like? I think Crawford probably is your first piece. What do the Phillies farmhands look like? Escobar, A-ball. Struggling so far at high A, though. Only 14 games. Too many issues so far. I want somebody clean. Burkholder. Does that even get you in the conversation? No, you need to go a little bit bigger. Mick Abel as the pitcher prospect, I think, would be the one you'd want going back. But you need position players more than anything else. Do you throw Tate in this deal? Give him a 3 and 4 piece. Not hitting very well either at high A. Dante Nori, no. Where's Burkhalter? 19-year-old, 197. Ouch. Not a good year. Not much better at A-ball. Aiden Miller, I think he's just too expensive. And the value isn't quite right either. He's not performing very well this year at Double A. Tate would be the one that would interest me a little bit. High A, 273 average. OPS is not great, but strikeout numbers, he's only played 6 games. He's a little far away. Maybe Alec Bohm? No. Stott? No. I guess Escobar would have to be the second piece. Does he have a high pedigree or something? That would give me a little bit more. 20 years old, been around since 22. Never been a great prospect overall, but yet they have a high value on him? No, thank you. Tate would probably have to be the return as well. That would probably be a deal that they could do. 3 for 1. Unlikely, yes, but not out of the question. More likely for the Phillies. We go to the White Sox. We go with Robert. We throw $7 million in this deal. Go into the Phillies to pay for him so that you get a better prospect back. White Sox need pitching, so Abel would be the return, the primary piece. You take out Crawford, of course, and Tate. Now you're going to need probably another 3 to 4 valuation. You could put Mendez in here as far as an outfielder. I think they could utilize one of those. Nori's got a little bit higher ceiling, though. So maybe you do Nori instead. I would do that trade right now if I was the White Sox. I'd do it in a heartbeat. What does posting the trades do? If you guys go to Baseball Trade Values, you can actually see all the trades that I post. You don't even need a membership. I do have a paid subscription to it, so I can do the trades, and I can see the value matcher, and I can do the surplus, and all that kind of a thing. But to actually see the trades that we post, you guys just go to the site and you can see them. Trade board is just like, just message boards, just to see what the values look like. So like the trade I just made, there we are. You can see there's a couple people making trades tonight as well. But you can see it's a lot of me tonight. I've made a lot of deals. Let's see here. How about the Phillies do 2 separate trades, one for Cruz and one for Bender? I could see them doing a Bender trade, but I think they'd be looking for a higher end piece. I do think there are trades out there for the Marlins to make for players like that. Don't get me wrong. Steve, I love the Cubs to trade for Willie Castro, who'll be a free agent that will not cost much. What do you think? I love that as well. We made the 2 trades for some starting pitching for them, but I think they could easily do a Willie Castro trade for a couple of small pieces, Melendez, and maybe a couple other small pieces in return. Can you do a trade where the Marlins sent Bender to the Phillies? I can do one, I suppose. What are his numbers this year first, though? I know Nardi's hurt this year, otherwise I'd prefer him. Bender this year, 1.83 ERA, so he's a good setup option. 0 ERA in his last 7, 0.6 in his last 15. Really good in his last 30. That's a strong season. To the Phillies to solve their issues in their bullpen. I still think they would go bigger game hunting. But if they did this deal in division, what's Bender's value first? They just came together on a trade for Luzardo anyway. 3.6, so you're probably looking for around 5 valuation, and you're looking for position players most likely. Burkhalter could be the return. If we trade Nori in the other deal, we trade Mendez in this one as the headliner. And then Arias and Saltaban gives them guys 20 years old, under 20 years old, position players, which is what they've been looking for. It is an overpay. What else do the Marlins have to give? Quantrill, perhaps, to kind of round out this deal? Quantrill 2.6. Yeah. Help him out in that rotation. Give him another arm down the stretch. Not that he starts in the playoff series, but that they can kind of take their time with Wheeler. Space out the starts of Sanchez. I think this would be a number 5 starter for them. If you don't want to include Quantrill, just take out one of the trade pieces here. So say you take out Arias. That gets you the return there. What team, in your honest opinion, that's a contender makes sense for a vendor who's a high-end relief guy or a great high-leverage 8th-inning guy? Twins have a bunch of pieces there that they could sell, but as far as a contender that makes sense, that needs those guys, pretty much everybody. My prayer for the 25 season is for the Jays and Rangers to have an ALCS matchup. That would be, if I had to pick the teams to get there right now, on the American League side, with the injury now to Aaron Judge, that takes the Yankees down a peg for me until they make some additions on the pitching side. And I want to see how Judge returns from the injury as a DH, how that lineup works out. They're still not completely out of it, but they're down a peg until they prove themselves again. Red Sox are 2 up and down. I'm going to go with the Rangers because their pitching has been the most consistent in the entire sport. And I think they're going to add to it. Their offense is ascending, so the Rangers get one of those spots. I would say the Blue Jays get the other, because I don't trust Detroit to get there. Houston, I just think, is too injured to be able to get there. But honestly, the American League is wide open. It could literally be any of these teams for any number of reasons. Skubal gets hot. Any number of reasons. Steve, Angels should sell. They have no chance to snatch a wild card. I think they'll sell selectively. Ward, I think, could be a piece that moves. Jansen is a piece that I think could move. But I don't think they're doing any wholesale moves. They're not trading Shanuel, Adele. They're not going to be trading Mike Trout or pieces like that. But I think they could trade small, expiring deals or guys with 1 year left on his deal after this season. Can we do a trade where we send Perez to the Dodgers? I'll go ahead and do that one for you real quick. Since they have a lot of valuable pieces that would fit for a Cabrera deal, makes sense that they could be a fit for a Perez deal as well. $57 is his value. Dodgers. I think you go DePaula as your primary piece coming back in return. I think Sirota would be your second piece that you'd want back. I think if you did this deal, you could even expand it to include Stowers. Then this deal makes sense to include Stowers because you get a bigger return. Think Quan and Clase. But to me, I'm not sure Perez would start in this rotation anyway. They have 5 aces, 6 aces really. I don't think they would do this trade. But if they were, say they worried about innings for whatever reason, Maybe even get Roki Sasaki out of it. I doubt, but no. Where else could you go here? Kind of that same deal we saw earlier. You go Quintaro. You go Lindsay. You're close. I think Ferris puts it over the top for you. I wouldn't do this deal if I'm the Dodgers because I have no need for Perez, even though he's a really good starter. This would mainly be a blocking type move, but I'm giving up way too much for a blocking type of a move. Welcome in, Mark. Jose, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. Got a fun one for you. Astros get a 1, 3, or 4 starting pitcher. Okay, so I get it. Astros get a 3 or 4 starter, a starting third baseman, and a left-handed hitting utility player where the Astros give up their ace Framber Valdez and Melton and maybe lower-level player. So basically you're saying they're doing what the Padres are thinking about doing, buying and selling at the deadline. Would they give up hope? Possibly. Let's get back to this trade idea for Mark. I kind of like this idea. Clear it out. Do a 3-team deal. Astros. I think Twins are a good fit here. No. I'm going to do Marlins as the selling team. And then the Mets, because I think they're going to be the team that we're to watch in free agency for Framber. What is his value anyway? $10.8. Melton, 16.1. That doesn't even get you Cabrera. You're not trading. I like the out-of-the-box idea as far as getting something for Valdez before you lose him for nothing in free agency, but I think that goose is cooked. I think it's too late to course correct on that one. I just don't see it. Valdez's value has dropped too much. If you had traded him before the season, you could have gotten a nice return. Just like you did for Kyle Tucker. You did a great job on that one. But I just think it's too late in the game for that one. Jose, I think Luis Roberts will be a Met, and the thought of that makes me sick to my stomach. I kind of think so too. Do Marlins and the Twins? Marlins aren't buying a piece like that. They already have their own piece like Perez right now and Joe Ryan. Perez is younger, but that's about it. And they certainly ain't giving up prospects for a controllable starter right now. They're about to enter a rebuild window, not a time for them to add pieces. All right, let's get back to our standings here and kind of finish off our National League discussion. We've done the Phillies. Let's go ahead and do the Padres. Now, this could be a more interesting one on the NL side. Now, what I'm saying is the Astros, Marlins, and Twins in the 3-team trade. Okay. Well, okay, I'll revisit it for you one more time. Astros, Marlins, and Twins. Who's taking Valdez in this deal? An expiring starter. Nobody. Who's taking Melton? Either one of those two teams. Who's given up a 3 or 4 starter to go back? Nobody. A more interesting one would be a team that needs Valdez. Cubs. They're all in anyway. You already have a track record of working on a trade there already. They were interested in Alcantara. Maybe you give Alcantara to the Astros, gives them an outfielder. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Now, where do you get the starter from? Cubs aren't giving you a starter. You don't have enough value back to get Cabrera, excuse me. Who's the starter you get as a 3-4 starter? Keller, too expensive. Trevor Rogers, maybe, from the Orioles. That makes some sense. And they have a left-handed hitting utility player. And they have more outfielders for you. So the Orioles could work. Valdez to the Cubs. Cubs trade Alcantara to the Astros. I just did Valdez. There we go. Okay. Now the Orioles, starting pitcher, value. Trevor Rogers goes to the Astros. And they bring back Charlie Morton for good measure. When he's right, he's a number 3. It's not a bad valuation there. Not to the Cubs, to the Astros, excuse me. Okay, now the Astros give up Melton in this deal. I don't think they would want Melton. I think they would need to give up a starting pitcher instead, which means Ryan Johnson goes to the Orioles. That's not bad. And then you go another cheaper option, another starting pitcher to the Orioles as well. You go back to the Orioles, you go to majors, you go to all, you go to expiring. Eflin could be in this deal as well, instead of Morton. In fact, let's flip that around. Eflin goes in, Morton goes out. You're looking for round 3. Mullins could go. O'Hearn would kind of fit as a bat. Not sure he really fits the utility aspect of it. Jorge Mateo would kind of fit, but I don't think he's able to play right now. I think he's hurt. And O'Hearn is another DH type. The DH spot's pretty much taken up. Let's go with value for round 3. Hurstead. Oh, Urias. There you go. Ramon Urias. So is that worth giving up Valdez, Johnson, and Fertucci? Astros get Alcantara, Rogers, Eflin, and Urias. Eflin, free agent at the end of the year. Rogers, available for you next year. I kind of like that deal if I'm the Astros. That's not bad. Welcome back, Seth. Appreciate you joining us once again. Arrighetti is around the 20s, if I remember correctly. Javier is pretty good value as well. Astros don't have enough to get Ryan. Giants win tonight. They play Pittsburgh Pirates. Who are Giants trading for this year? We'll get into the Giants here in just a moment. We did a really good trade a minute ago for the, well, I say a minute ago, about 20 minutes ago for the Giants, where they got Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton from the Orioles in exchange for 20, or there's a starting pitcher, 19-year-old starting pitcher, and a couple of lottery tickets. Post this one to the trade board. Let me pull up my profile real quick. That way we can pull up that trade for you there, Seth. It was a Giants trade. We've done a lot of trades. There it is. They got Sugano. Eflin and Sugano for Bresnahan was the prospect that had some value. And then a couple of pure lottery tickets. They rebuild the value basically that they lost in the Devers trade. Eflin, a number 3-4 type starter. Sugano, who knows. All right, let's go back to our standings here. We've done the Phillies. Let's get into the Padres because I think their trade deadline is going to be quite unique. Putting our Padres hat on, one of the final teams we'll do tonight. We'll do one more here with the Giants, I believe. Will we do the Reds? I don't think we'll do the Reds because I don't think there's anybody that they're going to buy here at the deadline. I think they're going to stick with what they got and maybe add around the periphery. There is the discussion around Eugenio Suarez, but that would be the one big trade they could make. I suppose I could do one trade for them. I'll do that one really quick. For those of you that are Reds fans, Suarez goes back to Cincinnati. His value, 8.1. Reds need a corner outfielder more than anything else, and starting pitching and bullpen. But they're not getting this in this trade. They're looking for impact to try to propel them into October, and just see where they're at next year after getting to the postseason, getting these guys the experience that they need in October. That's the thought process behind getting Suarez. So, where do you go? Tyson Lewis, I think, would be a great starting point for a deal. Cabrera, Sanchez, Stafura. They got some good position prospects here for the Cincinnati Reds. Lewis, 19 years old. A-ball. Great numbers at rookie ball. Just getting his feet wet in A-ball, but still the power numbers are showing. Okay. So Tyson Lewis would be the headliner of the deal going back to the Diamondbacks. And then you get a low-cost piece as well to finish it off. They like their relievers. You get Laureano. And there's your deal for Eugenio Suarez. Would it outdo any of the other offers we've done? Probably not. So take out Laureano. So a legit offer to make it competitive with the other offers they're getting. Nobody there really moves the needle for me. Let's go down to the bottom here. Mariano, maybe? Yeah. Mariano. He is not on this list. Lynn is. Huh. Take him out. Go back to page 2. Carlos Sanchez, maybe? Carlos, no. Let's say they throw in, Carlos Sanchez, just to kind of round out the deal. I still don't think that's enough for Eugenio Suarez, though. But that would be your Reds' big deal if they did it. I wouldn't do it, though. I think they're going to get better offers from the Cubs, those kinds of things. Eli Apple is a 49er. Interesting. What are you talking about, Seth? Soto would be a free agent? The pods make sense for Cabrera or Perez. Perez, no. They don't have the pieces to get for him. Cabrera, they barely have the pieces. Collier and Arroyo, that's too expensive. Okay, let's finish off this discussion around the Padres and kind of wrap it up for the evening. Dylan Cease is the piece that they're said to be looking to move on from to be able to get to build around this roster a little bit better. So if I'm looking to retool this roster, I go probably to the Cubs first. My ask from the Cubs is going to start with Owen Casey. because I think you'd immediately go onto the roster, and that's what they're said to be looking for, a controllable outfielder for his services. So you bring in Dylan Cease, and that would be your one-for-one trade. I think the Cubs would probably say yes to it. Barely. And I think the Padres say yes instantly. Now, to make this a little bit more interesting of a deal, if we did include Morejon, this deal gets a little bit more interesting for the Cubs and the Padres. You're looking about 8 surplus value. You need a starter going back. They don't really have a starter to give you. But you could recoup some real value if you did something like this. Wiggins then could be in this deal. Tomas could be in this deal. And that's a deal that I think the Padres would say yes to all day long. Cubs, they're all in this year. I think it'd be debatable whether they would say yes. But I would lean, since they're all in, they would lean yes. But I think if you just keep the deal clean, Cease for Clase, I think that deal gets done. Major overpay? Absolutely. This is kind of the equivalent of Spencer Jones for the Yankees going for Dylan Cease here, or Eugenio Suarez, and I don't think that's going to happen. Cease is a better piece than Suarez, sure. As a starting pitcher, better impact on the game. Suarez impacts more games, is the convincing argument there, I suppose. If you're on the side of Suarez, you'd rather do. But Owen Casey in exchange for Dylan Cease, and then the Padres have to figure out what they're going to do, what they're going to do with their starting staff after they lose Dylan Cease. But they're already going to have to figure it out anyway, because they don't have many options left in that starting rotation that are healthy and that are actually good, productive pieces. Darvish has been bad since he's come back, but hopefully he'll be better over the last few weeks of the season. Have to hold out hope for it. But this would be a move for the future for the Padres and still keep them in contention. Their runs allowed would probably go up, but their run scoring would also probably go up as well. Not a bad deal. Maybe do Alcantara and Wiggins instead if Casey is untouchable for the Cubs because of Kyle Tucker's impending free agency. I would still do that deal if I'm the Padres if it was on Alcantara and Wiggins. All right, we've done pretty much every team, American League and National League. Really do appreciate all your guys' support today. We've done a couple of lives today, and you guys have stuck with us the entire time. We'll be live again tomorrow night around 9:45, bringing you the latest from the MLB trade deadline. Let's head over to X and just see if anything else is happening this evening that is actually baseball related. Doesn't look like any major news popping up there. Let's see if on our baseball list. Astros interested in Willie Castro. Marte drawing trade interest, but why would the Mets trade him when they're trying to win a series this year? He's been great. What would be the impetus of the trade? Getting back an ace, I suppose? He's been exclusively a DH. Having some good luck on his BABIP as well. Final season of his contract, so free agent at the end of the year. Steep contract for a DH-only player, but they've kept him healthy. Fitting in younger players is the argument they're making so far. No, thank you. I'm trying to win this year. Those younger players can earn their spot. Beat me out. I'm an overpaid, aging veteran who can't play the field anymore. Beat me out. Maybe they could go for a bullpen addition, but why would you take your great piece in Starling Marte, who's having a great season? seen as a negative asset going into the year, certainly has turned himself around. I'm just curious what his value would be, even if you did try to trade him for a starter. Negative 6.2. Please. Update that field value. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Again, we'll be live tomorrow night around 9:45. We'll have a few videos coming out for you guys tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some actual trade news to discuss besides Eric Fetty. Now that the Hall of Fame is in the books, we've got some rumblings about Mackenzie Gore to the Cubs. Hopefully we get that blockbuster tomorrow. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think the Cubs will probably be the first team making the big trade here as they are all in on the season. Yankees seem to be kind of pulling back on the reins here. It looked like they were going to be a team that I was going to expect to make the bigger move for a starting pitcher sooner. But with the Aaron Judge injury, I wonder if it's kind of settled things down a little bit to make them a little bit more cautious, go for more of a controllable player than a rental. If they could if Judge was healthy, I think they would have done the rental deal already and gotten that deal done with the Arizona Diamondbacks, probably for Zach Gallen. But we'll see where they go. I think the Yankees still end up adding some starting pitching. I think they still add a reliever. I still think they have a legitimate chance to win a wild card spot. But I think their chances of winning the division have kind of flown past them. I think they're going to have to weather the storm of Judge being out of the lineup for a couple of weeks. Hope his bat comes back and they can keep on riding his bat until the postseason, as long as it doesn't give out. So hopefully he's back and healthy sooner rather than later for the Yankees. You never want to beat a team because they're missing a player. You always want to beat them at their best. And they do play my favorite team, the Texas Rangers, right around the time Judge is expected to be back, right after that series. I'd love to see him in that series. As a Rangers fan, I'd still love to see the best talent in the game. I may end up going to that series in Texas as well. It would have been great to see Aaron Judge on the field, but it looks like that's not going to happen. And it's going to be up to the Yankees front office to be able to figure out and plug the holes until he's able to get back in there. But thank you guys for joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on X at UpsideAscend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Stay safe, everybody.